I helped my neighbor during his divorce, then he tried to blame me for ruining his marriage. Part 1. The Escalation. You never think you are the villain in someone else's story until you see your name being dragged through the mud in a neighborhood group chat. I am looking at my phone right now, watching notifications roll in from people I have shared barbecue with for 5 years. They are calling me a home wrecker. They are calling me a saboteur. One of them just suggested I should be sued for alienation of affection, which is a legal term I am pretty sure they do not understand. The worst part is that I did nothing but listen. I offered a couch. I offered a beer. I offered the kind of generic, non-committal advice you give a coworker when they complain about their boss. And now, according to my neighbor Dave, I am the reason his wife of 15 years is walking away with full custody and the house. To understand how I got here, you have to understand Dave. You have to understand the specific brand of charisma that makes you want to help him, even when your gut tells you to lock the door. My wife, Jen, and I moved into this subdivision 6 years ago. It is one of those places where the lawns are manicured to within an inch of their lives and everyone waves when you drive by. It is pleasant. It is quiet. It is the kind of place where drama usually revolves around someone leaving their trash cans out a day too long. Dave and Sarah lived directly next door. They were the welcome wagon. The day the moving truck pulled up, Dave was there with a cooler of cold drinks and a stronger back than mine. He lifted the heavy boxes. He directed the movers. He charmed Jen within 5 minutes by complimenting her choice of patio furniture. Sarah was quieter. She stood back, holding a plate of brownies, smiling that tight, polite smile that I now recognize as the look of someone who is constantly walking on eggshells. For the first 4 years, we were the ideal quartet of neighbors. We did the 4th of July together. We rotated houses for dinner parties. Dave was the loud one, the storyteller. He was a sales manager for a mid-sized logistics firm, and he treated every social interaction like a pitch meeting. He had to win you over. He had to be the funniest guy in the room. I work in back-end IT. I like quiet. I like systems that make sense. Dave fascinated me because he was pure chaos masked as confidence. The cracks started showing about a year ago. It began with the garage nights. Dave started texting me on Tuesday nights. Garage open. Beer's cold. Need to vent. The first few times, I went over because I thought it was just neighborly bonding. We would stand around his pristine workbench, which he never used, and drink cheap domestic beer. Sarah is on my case again, Dave would say, leaning against his oversized SUV. She counts every penny, Mark. I bought a new set of golf clubs. Not even top of the line. Just a decent set. And she acts like I took food out of the kids' mouths. I would nod. Finances are tough, man. Jen and I have a spreadsheet. Keeps us honest. It isn't about the money, Dave would insist, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It is about control. She wants to control everything. Where I go. Who I see. She is suffocating me. This is where I made my first mistake. I validated him. I did not agree with him, but I validated his feelings. I said things like, yeah, that sounds frustrating, or everyone needs some space. I thought I was being a sounding board. I thought I was letting him blow off steam so he could go back inside and be a better husband. I did not realize I was giving him ammunition. The venting sessions became more frequent. Tuesday nights turned into Tuesday and Thursday. Then he started popping over to my place on Saturdays while I was trying to wash my car. He would complain about everything. Sarah did not cook the things he liked. Sarah was too tired for intimacy. Sarah focused too much on their 2 kids, aged 8 and 10, and not enough on him. I feel like a wallet, Mark, he told me once, staring intensely at the suds on my car hood. I am just a paycheck to her. She does not appreciate the grind. You get it, right? Jen appreciates you. Jen and I are partners, I said carefully. It works both ways. Exactly, Dave said, snapping his fingers. Partners. That is what I want. But Sarah acts like she is my mother. I should have shut it down then. I should have told him to go to therapy. But guys do not usually talk to each other like that in my circle. We grunt, we drink beer, and we assume things will work themselves out. The explosion happened 3 months ago. It was a Tuesday, naturally. I was in my home office, wrapping up a late deployment, when my phone buzzed. It was Dave. Can I crash at your place tonight? I looked at the text. I looked at the time. It was 11:30 p.m. I walked downstairs and opened the front door. Dave was standing on my porch. He had a duffel bag in one hand and a pillow in the other. He looked like a kicked puppy. She locked me out, he said. I let him in. What else was I going to do? He was my neighbor. Jen came down the stairs, tying her robe. She saw Dave and immediately stiffened. Jen has always had better instincts about people than I do. She tolerated Dave, but she never really liked him. What is going on? Jen asked. Sarah went crazy, Dave said, pacing around our living room. I came home a little late from happy hour. Okay, maybe more than a little late. And she just lost it. Started screaming about respect and responsibility. I tried to calm her down, and she told me to get out. Did you argue back? I asked. I tried to reason with her, Dave said. But you cannot reason with crazy. She threw my bag on the lawn. You can sleep in the guest room, Jen said, her voice cool. But you need to figure this out tomorrow, Dave. We are not getting in the middle of this. I know, Dave said, holding his hands up in surrender. Just for tonight. I just need to let her cool off. She will be begging me to come back by morning. He was wrong. The next morning, Dave walked back to his house. I watched from the window as he tried the front door. It was locked. He knocked. Nothing. He went around to the back. 10 minutes later, he was back on my porch. She changed the codes, he said, looking genuinely shocked. She changed the garage code and the smart lock. Who does that overnight? Someone who has been planning this for a while, Jen said from the kitchen, sipping her coffee. Dave spent the next 3 days on our couch. We have a guest room, but he preferred the couch because it allowed him to ambush me every time I walked into the kitchen. During those 3 days, I became his unwilling therapist. He poured out every grievance of the last 15 years. He told me about their debt. He told me about their arguments. He showed me text messages that, frankly, made Sarah look pretty reasonable. Sarah's texts, please do not come back until you are sober. Sarah's texts, we need to discuss the credit card bill before you spend any more money on hobbies. Sarah's texts, the kids are crying. Please just stay away for tonight. Dave read these out loud, but with his own commentary. See? Controlling. Do not come back. She is withholding my own house from me. Dave, I said on the second night. It sounds like she just wants you to stop spending money you do not have. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine anger in her eyes. Not at Dave. At me. You really have no idea, do you? She said. You think he is just a fun guy who likes to drink beer in the garage. You have been enabling him for months, Mark. Enabling him? I felt defensive. I just listened to him vent. I tell him to go home to you. He tells me that you agree with him, Sarah said. Her voice was flat. He comes home and says, Mark thinks you are unreasonable. He says, Mark says I deserve better. He says, Mark thinks you are a ball and chain. My stomach dropped. I never said any of that. Sarah, I swear. I never said those things. It does not matter what you said, she replied. It matters what he heard. And you gave him a place to hide. You gave him validation. You are his safe harbor, Mark. So you can keep him. She turned and walked away. When Dave came home that evening, I handed him the envelope. I was shaking. I was angry. You told her I said those things? I demanded. That she was a ball and chain? That you deserve better. Dave opened the envelope and scanned the papers. He did not look surprised. He looked calculated. I might have paraphrased, he said, not looking up. Paraphrased. I shouted. I never said anything remotely like that. I told you to work it out. I told you to stop spending money. You listened, Dave said, finally looking at me. You nodded. You drank my beer. You were my guy, Mark. In a court of law, silence is consent. Get out, I said. What? Get out of my house, I said. Call a hotel. Call your brother. I don't care. You are leaving. Now. You cannot kick me out, Dave said, a sneer appearing on his face. I am listed as residing here on my bail application. Bail application? I asked, confused. What bail? Oh, Dave said, realizing he had slipped. There was a small incident at the bank yesterday. Misunderstanding. Whatever. The point is, I gave the cops this address. I physically shoved him out the door. I threw his duffel bag after him. I locked the door and engaged the deadbolt. Jen came downstairs. What happened? He has been lying to everyone, I said. He has been using me to gaslight Sarah. And apparently, he is in legal trouble. That was the end of the friendship. But it was only the beginning of the nightmare. For the next 2 weeks, things were quiet. Dave moved into a motel out by the highway. Sarah stayed in the house. I saw her occasionally, taking the trash out or getting the mail, but she would not look at me. I sent her a text apologizing, explaining that Dave had twisted my words. She never replied. Then the rumors started. It began at the HMA meeting. I usually skip these, but Jen wanted to go because they were discussing a new playground. When we walked into the community center, the room went quiet. I mean, dead silent. People who usually greeted me with a handshake looked away. Mrs. Higgins, the elderly lady who lives across the street and makes cookies for everyone, literally turned her back on me. We sat in the back. Throughout the meeting, I could feel eyes on me. Whispers. After the meeting, I cornered Bob. Bob is a guy I play poker with sometimes. He is a terrible liar. Bob, what is going on? I asked. Why is everyone treating me like I have the plague? Bob looked uncomfortable. He shuffled his feet. Look, Mark, I do not want to get involved. You are involved, I said. You are staring at me like I kicked a dog. Tell me. Bob sighed. Dave has been talking to people. And? He says you advised him to hide assets, Bob said. He says you set up a crypto account for him so he could siphon money out of their joint savings before the divorce. He says you told him it was the only way to protect himself. My jaw hit the floor. I work in IT, Bob. I do not know the first thing about hiding assets. And I certainly did not tell him to steal from his wife. He showed us texts, Bob said. What texts? Texts where you said, make sure you keep something for yourself, and do not let her take everything. I remembered those texts. They were from 6 months ago. Dave had been talking about his baseball card collection. He was worried Sarah would make him sell it to pay off a credit card. I had said, make sure you keep something for yourself, referring to his hobby. He had weaponized my sympathy. That is out of context, I said. Bob, you know me. I do not know, Bob said, backing away. Sarah is struggling, Mark. She can barely pay the mortgage. If you helped him steal their savings, that is low. I went home and told Jen. She was furious. She wanted to post on the neighborhood Facebook page. She wanted to confront Dave. No, I said. That just feeds the drama. If we ignore it, it will go away. The truth will come out in court. I was naive. 2 days later, I received a letter in the mail. It was not from a lawyer. It was from Sarah. It was a handwritten note. Mark, I do not know why you hate me. I do not know what I ever did to you. But Dave told me everything. He told me you encouraged him to leave. He told me you introduced him to that woman at the bar. He told me you have been covering for him for years. I thought we were friends. I thought you were a good man. Please, just tell me where the money is. I have to feed my kids. I felt sick. That woman at the bar? I had never been to a bar with Dave. We drank in his garage or mine. I realized then that Dave was not just using me as an excuse. He was building a completely alternative reality where I was the mastermind behind his destruction. By painting me as the bad influence, he became the victim of peer pressure. He became the confused husband led astray by his toxic neighbor. It was brilliant. It was evil. I decided I had to talk to Sarah. I had to clear my name. I walked over to her house. I rang the bell. She opened the door, saw it was me, and tried to slam it shut. I stuck my foot in the jam. Rude, I know, but I was desperate. Sarah, please, I said. You have to listen to me. Go away, she yelled. I will call the police. Call them. I said. I do not care. I just need you to know the truth. I never hid money. I never introduced him to anyone. He is lying to you to make himself look better. He has proof, she screamed. He has recordings. Recordings of what? Of you. She pulled out her phone. She played an audio file. It was my voice. I recognized it immediately. It was from one of our garage nights. Voice of Mark, you just have to do what makes you happy, man. If she is making you miserable, you have to look out for number one. Life is too short to be trapped. I remembered that conversation. Dave had been talking about quitting his job to start a consulting firm. He was miserable at work. I was telling him to quit his job. But in the context of the divorce, it sounded like I was telling him to leave his wife. That was about his job. I shouted. Sarah, we were talking about logistics. He hated his boss. You are a liar, she spat. You are trying to cover your tracks because you know I am going to subpoena you. Subpoena me? My lawyer is adding you to the witness list, she said. We are going to depose you. We are going to find out everything you helped him do. She slammed the door. I pulled my foot back just in time. I walked back to my house, my heart pounding. I was being dragged into a divorce case. I was going to be deposed. I was going to have to hire a lawyer. I walked into my kitchen and sat down. Jen was making dinner. We need a lawyer, I said. Jen dropped the spatula. What? Sarah thinks I helped him hide money. She has recordings of me taken out of context. She is subpoenaing me. Jen sat down opposite me. How did this happen? How did we get here from just lending a guy a socket wrench? Because he is a narcissist, I said. And I was a convenient prop. That night, I started going through my phone. I needed evidence. I needed to find the original texts, the context. But Dave was smart. He called for the important stuff. The texts were innocuous. I realized I needed to beat him at his own game. I needed to get him to admit he was lying. I unblocked his number. I sent him a text. Mark, hey. Sarah is threatening to sue me. She thinks I have the money. You need to tell her the truth. He replied almost instantly. Dave, sorry buddy. My lawyer said I cannot talk to you. Conflict of interest. Mark, you are ruining my life, Dave. I never did anything but help you. Dave, you gave me advice. I took it. Not my fault it went south. He was sticking to the script. The next phase of the war was the social isolation. We were uninvited from the block party. Someone threw eggs at my car. I went to the grocery store and ran into the PDA president, who looked at me with pure disgust and steered her cart down a different aisle. I felt like I was living in a fishbowl of hate. Then came the Facebook post. Dave posted a long emotional update on his profile. He did not tag me, but he did not have to. It is hard when you realize the people you trusted were steering you wrong. I was vulnerable. I was hurting. And I let a friend get in my head. I let him convince me that my marriage was over before it really was. I take responsibility for my actions, but I also know that toxic masculinity is a real thing. Be careful who you listen to, guys. Some people just want to watch the world burn. It garnered 200 likes. Comments poured in. Stay strong, Dave. So true, real friends support marriage, they don't destroy it. We know who you are talking about. Shameful. I was reading the comments, shaking with rage, when I saw one from a name I did not recognize. User, wait, is this about Mark? Because that doesn't sound like him. It was a guy named Greg. I clicked on his profile. Greg was a guy I had helped fix a flat tire 3 years ago. We were not friends, just acquaintances. But he had stood up for me. Dave replied to Greg, "You don't know what happened behind closed doors, Greg. Mark has a dark side." That was it. Mark has a dark side. I printed the screenshot. I went to a lawyer the next day. A real shark of a family law attorney named Harrow. I sat in Harrow's office and laid it all out. The texts, the recordings, the rumors, the Facebook post. Harrow listened, taking notes. "Here is the thing," Harrow said. Defamation is hard to prove. You have to prove damages. Did you lose your job? No. Did you lose money? Not yet. Then it is just he said she said, Harrow said. But the subpoena, that is real. If she deposes you, you are under oath. That is your chance. My chance for what? To blow him up, Harrow said, smiling a thin, predatory smile. If you are under oath, you have to tell the truth. About everything. Every conversation. Every beer. Every time he complained about Sarah. Every time he mentioned another woman. He mentioned another woman? I asked. You tell me, Harrow said. Did he? I thought back. The garage nights. The drunken ramblings. There was one night. About 4 months ago. Dave was 3 beers deep. I met someone, he had said. Just a coffee. But she gets me. She listens. I had dismissed it. Don't go down that road, Dave, I had said. I'm not, he said. But it is nice to feel wanted. He had mentioned a name. Tina? Tanya? Tara, I said aloud. He mentioned a Tara. Harrow wrote it down. Good. If you are deposed, you tell them about Tara. You tell them about the golf clubs he bought with cash, so Sarah wouldn't see the credit card statement. You tell them about the separate bank account he bragged about opening, just in case. He bragged about that? I asked, struggling to remember. Think, Mark, Harrow said. Did he ever mention a safety net? He said he had a freedom fund, I recalled. He kept cash in a lockbox in his trunk. Bingo, Harrow said. You are not the villain, Mark. You are the star witness. I went home feeling a little better. I had a strategy. But Dave was not done. The next day, I came home to find a for sale sign on my lawn. I did not put it there. I stormed over to Dave's motel. I knew where he was staying because he had posted a pity selfie from the room. I banged on the door. Dave opened it, looking disheveled. He was wearing a bathrobe. Did you put a sign on my lawn? I yelled. I don't know what you are talking about, he said, smirking. You are a child, I said. You are a 40-year-old child. And you are the guy everyone hates, he said. How is Jen handling it? I hear she is embarrassed to be seen with you. Jen is fine, I said, though it was a lie. Jen was stressed. She was crying in the shower. Sarah hates you, Dave said, leaning against the doorframe. She thinks you are the devil. It is actually bringing us closer. We talk about how much we dislike you. It is the first thing we have agreed on in years. Maybe you are saving my marriage after all. By being the common enemy. I stared at him. It made perfect sense. He was using me as a scapegoat to bond with his wife. If he could convince her that I was the corrupting influence, then he was just a victim who could be redeemed. He was triangulating me. You are sick, I said. I am surviving, he said. And I am going to win. I drove home. I took the sign down. I sat Jen down. He is doing this to get her back, I said. He is making me the villain, so they have something to bond over. That is twisted, Jen said. It is brilliant, I admitted. But I have a trump card. The deposition. The deposition was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In that time, the neighborhood war escalated. Someone reported my dog to animal control for barking. My dog sleeps 20 hours a day. Someone called the city about my fence being 2 inches too high. Someone signed me up for a dozen porn site newsletters using my work email. I knew it was Dave. Or Dave's flying monkeys. I kept my head down. I documented everything. Finally, the day of the deposition arrived. I walked into the conference room at Sarah's lawyer's office. Sarah was there. She looked haggard. Dave was there, looking smug in a cheap suit. I was sworn in. Sarah's lawyer, a sharp woman named Ms. Vance, started the questioning. Mr. Thompson, she said, how long have you known the defendant? 6 years. And you were his confidant? I was his neighbor. Did you advise him to leave his wife? No. Did you advise him to hide assets? No. We have a recording, she said. She played the clip again. The lookout for number 1 clip. Please explain this statement, she said. Dave was complaining about his boss at Logistics Corp, I said clearly. He wanted to quit to start a consulting firm. I told him to do what makes him happy regarding his career. Dave shifted in his seat. And the Freedom Fund? Ms. Vance asked. Did you suggest he create a cash stockpile? No, I said. But he told me he had one. Dave froze. Sarah looked up. Explain, Ms. Vance said. About 6 months ago, I said, looking directly at Dave. Dave told me he was selling inventory from his company on the side. Excess shipping containers or something. He said he was getting paid in cash. He called it his Freedom Fund. He keeps it in a lockbox in the spare tire well of his SUV. The room went silent. Dave jumped up. He is lying. That is privileged. That is a lie. Sit down, his lawyer hissed. Sarah was staring at Dave. You stole from your company? I did not. Dave yelled. He is making it up. I am under oath, I said calmly. And if you check his trunk or his bank records for cash deposits, you will find it. He also mentioned a woman named Tara. Dave's face went white. Tara. Sarah whispered. He said he met her for coffee, I continued. He said she understood him. He said it was nice to be wanted. You son of a... Dave lunged across the table. His lawyer tackled him. Literally tackled him. The deposition ended shortly after that. I walked out of the office. I felt light. I felt clean. I drove home. I told Jen everything. She opened a bottle of wine. So it is over? She asked. For us? Maybe, I said. For him? It is just starting. 2 days later, the police were at Dave's house. Not for domestic issues. For theft. Apparently, Logistics Corp takes inventory theft seriously. The neighborhood group chat was quiet for a day. Then, the messages started changing. Did you hear Dave was arrested? I heard he was stealing from work. I heard he had a secret girlfriend. I always thought there was something off about him. Just like that, the wind shifted. The people who had glared at me in the grocery store started waving again. Mrs. Higgins brought over cookies and said, I knew you were a good boy, Mark. That Dave was always a bit too smooth. It was infuriating. Their loyalty was as flimsy as wet paper. Sarah came over a week later. She had the grace to look ashamed. I am sorry, she said, standing on my porch. It is okay, I said. It was not okay, but I wanted this to be over. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, she said. It was easier to think you were the bad guy than to accept that he was a thief and a cheater. I get it, I said. He is facing jail time, she said. And I am selling the house. I cannot afford it on my own. I wish you luck, Sarah, I said. She nodded and walked away. The for sale sign went up on their lawn the next day. You would think that is the end of the story. The bad guy got caught, the good guy was vindicated, and the neighborhood went back to normal. But real life isn't a movie. Dave is out on bail. He is staying with his brother in the next town over. And he has not stopped. He has started a blog. A men's rights blog where he chronicles his unjust persecution by a corrupt legal system and a betraying neighbor. He uses pseudonyms, calling me Narcissist Neighbor Ned. He writes detailed fictionalized accounts of how I seduced his wife and framed him for theft. He has a following. Random people on the internet comment on his posts, calling me a monster. They do not know who I am, but Dave knows. And he sends me the links. Check this out, Mark. The world knows the truth. I blocked his number again. I blocked his email. But the other day, I was mowing the lawn. A car slowed down in front of my house. A guy I did not know leaned out the window. Hey Ned, he shouted. Watch your back. He peeled away. I stood there, gripping the handle of the mower. I helped my neighbor move a couch. I gave him a beer. I listened to him whine. And now I have a nemesis. I am thinking about moving. Jen loves this house, but the air here feels tainted. Every time I look at the driveway next door, I see Dave's ghost. I see the spot where we built the fence together. I see the spot where he stood and lied to my face. We are good people. We tried to be good neighbors. But the lesson I learned is this: you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. And sometimes, when someone is drowning, they will climb on top of you to breathe, even if it means drowning you instead. I just got a text from Bob. Bob, hey man, sorry about everything. Poker night this Friday? I looked at the text. I looked at my house. I looked at the sold sign on Dave's lawn. I typed back, I'm busy. I think I am done with neighbors for a while. Part 2, the aftermath and the new tenants. It has been 3 months since the deposition. 3 months since Dave was exposed as a thief and a philanderer. 3 months since the neighborhood collectively decided to pretend they hadn't spent 6 weeks treating me like a pariah. The silence from next door was the best part. No loud music. No power tools at 7 a.m. No Dave. But a vacuum never lasts long. The new neighbors moved in last week. I watched them from my office window. A young couple. Maybe late 20s. They have a toddler and a golden retriever. They look nice. They look normal. I saw the husband struggling with a mattress. It was a king size, heavy and awkward. He was trying to pivot it around the gate. My instinct, my deep suburban, dad reflex instinct, was to go out there. To put on my work gloves, walk down the driveway and say, hey, need a hand with that? I stood up. I took a step toward the door. Then I stopped. I remembered Dave's smile the day he moved in. I remembered the beer. I remembered the feeling of camaraderie. I sat back down. I watched the guy struggle for another 10 minutes. Eventually, he dropped the mattress in the mud. He kicked it. He looked frustrated. I felt a pang of guilt. I am not a jerk. I like helping people. But I stayed in my chair. Jen came in a few minutes later. She looked out the window. New neighbors seem nice, she said. Yeah, I said. Should we take over a pie? Or a bottle of wine? I looked at her. No. She looked surprised. No. No, I said firmly. We wave. We say hello. We keep the lawn mowed. That is it. We do not go into their house. We do not invite them into ours. We do not learn their drama. Jen sighed. She knew I was right, but she hated it. It feels so cold. It is safe, I said. That night, I was taking the trash out. The new guy was in his driveway. Hey, he called out. He had an open, friendly face. I'm Mike. Just moved in. Mark, I said, staying on my side of the property line. Welcome to the neighborhood. Thanks, Mike said. He walked toward the fence. Hey, do you know anything about the previous owner? We keep getting this weird mail. My blood ran cold. What kind of mail? Legal stuff, Mike said. And hate mail? Someone sent a glitter bomb yesterday addressed to the coward, Dave. Even in absentia, he was haunting the place. The previous owner had some issues, I said vague. Just returned to sender. Yeah, Mike said. He leaned on the fence. So what is the vibe here? Is it a close-knit street? We love block parties. I looked at Mike. I saw the hunger for connection. He wanted to belong. He wanted a friend. It is quiet, I said. People keep to themselves. Mike's face fell a little. Oh. Okay. Well, if you ever want to grab a beer. I don't drink much, I lied. I walked back into my house and locked the door. Part 3, the digital war. I thought avoiding the new neighbors would be the end of it. I thought I could build a fortress of solitude and ride out the rest of our mortgage. But Dave's blog was growing. I have a Google alert set up for my name. It is a vanity thing, usually. I used to like seeing my name pop up in IT conference listings or local 5K run results. Now, every alert is a dagger. Dave, writing under the handle Red Pill Dave, had started a series called The Betrayal Chronicles. He wasn't using my full name anymore, but he was using my initials. MT. And he was posting details that only someone who knew me would know. MT drives a blue sedan. He thinks he is better than everyone because he works in tech. He sits in his ivory tower judging real men who get their hands dirty. MT acts like a saint, but I know for a fact he cheats on his taxes. He bragged about writing off his gaming PC as a work expense. I stared at the screen. I did write off my PC. Because I am a developer. It is a legitimate expense. But the way Dave framed it, I was Al Capone. The comments were getting more specific. User Slayer 69. Someone should report MT to the IRS. User Justice for Dave. Does MT have a dog? Be a shame if something happened to it. I showed the blog to Harrow, my lawyer. It is harassment, Harrow said. But he is dancing on the line. He hasn't posted your address. He hasn't threatened you directly. His followers are threatening my dog. Internet trolls, Harrow said dismissively. Unless they show up, there isn't much the police will do. Free speech is a pain, Mark. So I just have to sit here and let him lie about me? You can sue him for libel, Harrow said. But the guy is broke. He is facing felony theft charges. You cannot get blood from a stone. And a lawsuit just gives him more content. He will live blog the trial. He will make you famous. I realized Harrow was right. Dave wanted a fight. He needed a fight. Without an enemy, he was just a sad divorced thief living in his brother's basement. With an enemy, he was a crusader. I decided to starve the beast. I stopped reading the blog. I deleted the Google alert. But the beast found me. I was at the hardware store, buying mulch. I was standing in line when a guy tapped me on the shoulder. Are you Mark? I turned. The guy was big. Beard, camo hat, heavy boots. Yes. You know Dave, right? My stomach clenched. I used to. The guy stepped closer. Dave is a good man. Okay, I said, looking for the exit. You screwed him over, the guy said. His voice was low, menacing. You and that bitch wife of his. I don't know who you are, I said. But you need to back off. Or what? The guy sneered. You gonna call your lawyer? You gonna record me? People were staring. The cashier looked terrified. I am leaving, I said. I abandoned my cart and walked out. My hands were shaking. He followed me to the parking lot. We are watching you, he shouted. I got in my car and locked the doors. I drove away, checking my rearview mirror every 5 seconds. Who was that? A friend of Dave's? A blog follower? I got home and called the non-emergency line. An officer came out, took a report, and shrugged. Unless he threatened immediate violence, it is just a disturbance. We will step up patrols. I bought security cameras that afternoon. 4 of them. I covered every angle of the house. Jen came home to find me mounting a camera over the garage. What happened? She asked. I told her about the hardware store. Jen went pale. Mark, this is getting dangerous. Maybe we should move. And let him win. I said. If we run, he wins. He gets to write a post about how he drove the coward out of town. I don't care about his blog. Jen shouted. I care about us. I don't want to live like this. We had our first big fight in years. Jen wanted to list the house immediately. I wanted to stand my ground. We slept in separate rooms. The irony was not lost on me. Dave had accused me of ruining his marriage, and now, he was actively ruining mine. Part 4. The Olive Branch. A week later, I was in the yard, angrily weeding the flower beds. I was taking my frustration out on the dandelions. Hey. I looked up. It was Mike, the new neighbor. Hey, I grunted. So, Mike said, leaning on the fence. I found the blog. I froze. Oh. Yeah, Mike said. I googled the address to see property tax history, and this Red Pill Dave site came up. He talks about the house on Elm Street a lot. Listen, Mike, I said, standing up. It is all lies. The guy is mentally unstable. I know, Mike said. I paused. You know? Yeah, Mike said. I read the court documents too. Public record. Grand larceny. Domestic violence allegations. The guy is a train wreck. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Okay. Good. I was worried you thought I was, whatever he says I am. He says you are a CIA operative in one post, Mike laughed. And a communist in another. He can't decide. We shared a small, awkward laugh. Look, Mike said. I know you want to be left alone. I get it. Trauma. But my mower broke. And the grass is getting high. I looked at his lawn. It was indeed getting shaggy. Do you need to borrow mine? I asked. If you don't mind, Mike said. I promise I won't accuse you of stealing my identity if I break it. I hesitated. This was how it started with Dave. The lending of tools. The opening of the door. But Mike looked normal. He looked sane. And his grass was really long. Sure, I said. I'll wheel it around. I gave him the mower. He thanked me. He mowed his lawn. He returned it an hour later, with a full tank of gas. Thanks, Mark, he said. You're a lifesaver. No problem. By the way, Mike said, I work in cybersecurity. Oh. Yeah. I took a look at that blog's hosting. I raised an eyebrow. It is hosted on a cheap server in Panama, Mike said. But the admin logs in from an IP address in, let's see, Shelbyville. That is where Dave's brother lives, I said. Figured, Mike said. Also, I noticed he is using copyrighted images from Disney in his headers. Disney lawyers are pretty aggressive. Are they? Very, Mike smiled. It would be a shame if someone reported the site for DMCA violations. It would get taken down in about 4 hours. I looked at Mike. Mike looked at me. That would be a shame, I said. I can show you how to file the report, Mike said. If you want. I smiled. A real smile. Come on in, Mike. Have a beer. Part 5, The Counter-Strike. Mike sat at my computer. He was a wizard. Within 20 minutes, he had drafted a comprehensive DMCA takedown notice targeting the images, the music Dave used in his vlog intros, and even some text he had lifted from other sites. We submitted it. 6 hours later, I checked the URL. Error 404. Site not found. I high-fived Mike. It felt childish. It felt petty. It felt glorious. Dave's Twitter, I refuse to call it X, exploded. They silenced me. The deep state took down my blog. MT has friends in high places. Technically true, Mike said, sipping his beer. I am pretty tall. For the first time in months, I felt like I had agency. I wasn't just a victim. I was fighting back. But Dave wasn't done. Losing his platform made him desperate. 2 days later, Jen called me at work. She was crying. He's here, she sobbed. Who? Dave. He is in the driveway. He is screaming. I am coming home, I said. Call 911. I drove like a maniac. I ran 2 red lights. When I pulled up, there was a police cruiser in the driveway. Dave was in handcuffs, leaning against the hood of the cop car. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His hair was greasy. He was ranting to the officer. It is my house, he was shouting. I built that fence. I paid for this street. I ran to Jen. She was standing on the porch, shaking. Are you okay? He tried to kick the door in, she said. He was screaming your name. He said you ruined his life. The officer walked over to me. Are you the homeowner? Yes. Do you know this man? He used to live next door, I said. He has been harassing us for months. He seems to be under the influence, the officer said. We found a bottle of whiskey in his passenger seat. Open container. DUI. Trespassing. Attempted B&E. I looked at Dave. He locked eyes with me. You won, he screamed. Spittle flew from his mouth. Are you happy, Mark? You won. You took my wife. You took my job. You took my blog. I didn't take anything, Dave, I said quietly. You threw it away. You were supposed to be my friend, he sobbed. He collapsed against the car, weeping. I just wanted someone to be on my side. It was pathetic. It was tragic. They put him in the car and drove him away. The street was silent. Neighbors were watching from their windows. Mrs. Higgins was on her porch, hand over her mouth. Mike came out of his house. He walked over to the property line. You okay? Yeah, I said. That was intense. Yeah. He is gone now, right? Like for real. He violated bail, I said. He picked up 3 new charges. He isn't coming back for a long time. Part 6, The Long Tail. Peace returned. It was a slow, tentative peace. The kind that comes after a storm when you are waiting for the next thunderclap. The trial happened 6 months later. I testified. Sarah testified. Dave looked small in the courtroom. He pleaded guilty to the theft charges in exchange for a reduced sentence on the harassment and trespassing. He got 3 years. I saw Sarah in the hallway after the sentencing. She looked better. She had cut her hair. She was smiling. Thank you, Mark, she said. For what? For telling the truth, she said. And I am sorry about the subpoena. And the accusations. Water under the bridge, I said. We are moving to Oregon, she said. To be closer to my parents. The kids need a fresh start. That sounds nice, I said. Oregon is beautiful. Take care of yourself, Mark, she said. And maybe be careful who you lend tools to. She walked away. I drove home. I pulled into my driveway. I looked at the house next door. Mike was out front, playing fetch with his dog. Hey, Mark. Mike yelled. Beer later. I hesitated. The scar tissue was still there. The fear that kindness would be weaponized. But then I looked at Mike. He wasn't Dave. He was a nerd who liked cybersecurity and hated bullies. Sure, Mike, I said. 7 o'clock. I went inside. Jen was in the kitchen. Is he gone? She asked. 3 years, I said. Jen exhaled. She hugged me. It is finally over. Yeah. But is it? I still check the locks twice a night. I still flinch when a car slows down too much outside. I still wonder, when a friend vents to me about their spouse, if I'm being set up. I learned a lot about human nature. I learned that people create narratives to survive their own failures. Dave couldn't accept that he was a bad husband and a thief, so he invented a villain. I was just the casting choice he made. It could have been anyone. It could have been Bob. It could have been Mike. It just happened to be me because I was there. Because I listened. I used to think being a good neighbor meant being available. Now I know it means having boundaries. I still help people. I helped Mike fix his gutter last week. But when he started complaining about his mother-in-law, I put my hand up. Mike, I said. I love you, man. But you should tell your wife that, not me. Mike laughed. Fair enough. That is the new rule. I will lend you sugar. I will jumpstart your car. I will water your plants. But I will not carry your emotional baggage. I have enough of my own. Epilogue, 1 year later. I got a letter yesterday. No return address. Prison stationery. Mark. I have had a lot of time to think in here. They have anger management classes. They make us write journals. I realized something. I wasn't mad at you. I was mad at myself. And I was scared. I didn't want to be the bad guy, so I made you one. I am sorry. Truly. P.S. Can you check if my baseball cards are still in the attic? Sarah said she left them. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. I walked over to the fence. Mike was there. What's funny? Mike asked. Dave wrote me, I said. He wants his baseball cards. Are they there? Who knows, I said. And I am not going up to look. I tore the letter up and dropped it in the recycling bin. Beer. Mike asked. Beer, I said. The sun was going down. The neighborhood was quiet. The shadows were long, but they weren't scary anymore. They were just shadows. I am not the villain. I am not the hero. I am just the guy who lives at 402 Maple Drive. And that is enough. Update, the HOA shenanigans. Just when I thought the drama was completely dead, the HOA decided to resurrect the ghost of grievances past. We have a new HOA president. Let's call her Karen, because, well, the shoe fits. Karen was a big fan of Dave. She was one of the people who believed his mark is a saboteur narrative. Last week, I got a citation. Violation, Unapproved exterior modification. Description: security cameras are unsightly and violate Section 4.2 of the bylaws. I marched down to the meeting. Karen was sitting at the head of the table, looking smug. "The cameras have to go, Mark," she said. "They don't fit the aesthetic of the neighborhood." "They are for safety," I said. "You know why I installed them." "That unfortunate business with David is over," she sniffed. "There is no need for paranoia. It lowers property values to have a house that looks like a fortress." "They stay," I said. "Then we will fine you," she said. $50 a day." I went home and told Mike. Mike cracked his knuckles. Section 4.2. Mike asked. "Yeah. Let me look at the bylaws," Mike said. Mike found a loophole. Apparently, the bylaws exempt temporary security measures during periods of elevated threat. "We just need to prove the threat is still elevated," Mike said. "How do we do that?" "Dave is in jail." "But his blog is archived," Mike said. "And the comments are still there. And technically, since he sent you a letter, he has re-established contact." We drafted a letter to the HMA board, citing the ongoing harassment from a former resident, and attaching a copy of the prison letter, taped back together. We argued that removing the cameras would create a liability for the HMA if anything happened. Karen folded. The fine was rescinded. But she glared at me when I left. "You are a trouble magnet, Mark," she said. "I am just a guy with a camera, Karen," I said. "It never truly ends, does it? The ripples of one chaotic person can disturb the water for years. Dave is gone, but the distrust he sowed, the factions he created, they linger. I have learned to live with it. I have learned that you cannot control what people think of you. You can only control your own actions. And my actions today involve grilling steaks with Mike and ignoring Karen's stink eye." Reflections on the help. I have been thinking a lot about the nature of help. When I let Dave crash on my couch, I thought I was being a saint. I thought I was being the kind of guy who steps up. But looking back, was I? Or was I just avoiding conflict? It would have been harder to say, "No, Dave, go to a hotel." It would have been awkward. He would have been mad. By saying yes, I bought myself temporary peace. I bought myself the feeling of being the good guy, without actually doing the hard work of holding him accountable. Sarah was right. I enabled him. Not maliciously. Not intentionally. But effectively. I gave him a soft landing when he deserved to hit the ground. And because he didn't hit the ground, he thought he could keep flying. If I had closed the door that night, maybe he would have gone to a hotel. Maybe he would have called his brother then. Maybe the narrative would never have spun out of control because he wouldn't have had the proximity to me to build his lies. It is a tough pill to swallow. I want to be the victim. I am the victim of his lies. But I am also an accessory to his denial. I told this to Jen last night. She looked at me thoughtfully. "You are being too hard on yourself," she said. "You are not responsible for his choices." "I know," I said. "But I am responsible for my door." "And now your door is locked," she said. "Yes," I said. "It is." Final thoughts. To anyone reading this who has a Dave in their life, the charismatic friend who is always the victim. The one who has a crazy ex, a crazy boss, a crazy family. The one who needs you because you are the only one who gets it. Run. They do not want your help. They want your endorsement. They want you to sign off on their version of reality so they don't have to look in the mirror. And if you refuse to sign, if you hold up a mirror instead, they will break the mirror. And they will use the shards to cut you. Be boring. Be unavailable. Be the bad neighbor who doesn't answer the door at 11 p.m. It is lonely sometimes. But it is peaceful. And peace, I have learned, is worth more than popularity. End of story. Author's note: this story recounts events that transpired over approximately 18 months. Names and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of the innocent and the guilty. Appendix: the deleted texts. I found an old backup of my phone recently. I recovered some of the texts from the garage era. Reading them now, with the benefit of hindsight, is chilling. Dave, 8:02 p.m. Sarah is on a rampage. She hates that I'm happy. Coming over? Mark, 8:05 p.m. Sure, give me 10 minutes. Dave, 9:45 p.m. You're the best, man. Thanks for listening. She just doesn't get the vision. Mark, 9:46 p.m. Hang in there. Dave, 11:20 a.m. Next day. Hey, about that cash thing I mentioned. Keep that between us, yeah? Sarah would just spend it on useless crap. Mark, 11:30 a.m. Your business is your business. That last one. Your business is your business. That was the nail in my coffin. To me, it was a dismissal. I don't want to hear about it. To him, and to a lawyer, it was complicity. Words matter. Silence matters. I am going to delete the backup. I don't need the ghosts in my cloud storage. I am going to go outside. Mike is waving. He has a new smoker. He wants to try a brisket. Brisket takes 12 hours, he shouts. I have time. I shout back. And I do. I have time. I have my wife. I have my house. And I have a fence. A very high, very sturdy fence. The end. The gaslighting was subtle at first. It started with a missing 20 from my wallet or the faint scent of cologne in the car that wasn't mine. But whenever I brought it up, Sarah looked at me with those wide, innocent hazel eyes and told me I was stressed. She told me I needed sleep. She told me I was losing my grip on reality. For months, I actually believed her. I went to a therapist because I thought I was developing early-onset dementia at 34. That is how good she was. She had me convinced my own senses were traitors. But my senses were fine. It was my wife who was the liar. And I found the proof taped underneath the passenger seat of her Honda Odyssey, wrapped in black electrical tape like a drug mule's payload. A burner phone. A cheap plastic brick that held the truth about where our savings went, why she was always late, and who she really was when she thought I wasn't watching. 3 days ago, I was a happily married man with a stable job, a loving wife, and a 5-year plan for a vacation home. Today, I am a man sitting in a motel room, staring at a prepaid smartphone and wondering how I shared a bed with a stranger for 7 years. It began on a Tuesday. I remember the day clearly because it was the day I supposedly lost my mind. I had come home early from the office. My firm had closed for a fumigation issue, and I thought I would surprise Sarah. Her car was in the driveway. I walked in, expecting to find her on the couch or in her home office. The house was silent. I called out her name. Nothing. I checked the garage. Her car was there, hood cold. I checked the backyard. Empty. I pulled out my phone and called her. It went straight to voicemail. I walked into the kitchen and saw her keys on the counter. Her purse was there too. Panic started to creep in. A woman does not leave her house without her keys, purse, or phone. I did a lap of the house, checking the bathrooms. Nothing. Then, the back door opened. Sarah walked in, breathless, wearing her running gear. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes widening just a fraction. It was a micro-expression of shock, instantly replaced by a smile. "Mark," she said, "you're home early." "Where were you?" I asked. "I've been looking everywhere. Your car is here. Your keys are here." She laughed, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "I went for a run, silly. I told you this morning I was going to start jogging again." "You didn't tell me that," I said. "I did," she replied, twisting the cap off. "Right before you left. You were drinking your coffee. You probably weren't listening. You zone out a lot lately." I frowned. I remembered our morning conversation. We talked about the electric bill and what to have for dinner. Jogging never came up. "Sarah, I would remember if you said you were going jogging. You hate running." She sighed, a sound of exaggerated patience. "Mark, don't do this again. You forget things. Remember the dry cleaning last week? You swore you dropped it off, but it was still in the back seat." The dry cleaning incident. That was the first strike against my sanity. I had vivid memories of dropping it off, but she was right. The clothes were in the car. "Okay," I said, backing down. "Maybe I forgot. But you didn't have your phone." "I like to disconnect when I run," she said, walking past me to the shower. "It clears my head." It seemed plausible. It made sense. But as she walked away, I noticed something. Her shoes. She was wearing her pristine white running sneakers. The soles were spotless. It had rained that morning. The streets were full of puddles and mud. If she had been running outside for 30 minutes, those shoes should have been filthy. I stared at her retreating back. "Your shoes are clean," I said. She stopped on the stairs. She didn't turn around. "I ran on the treadmill at the gym, Mark." "You walked to the gym? It's 3 miles away." She turned then, her face hard. "I got a ride with heavy traffic, so I walked back part of the way." "Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm just confused." "You're not confused," she snapped. "You're paranoid. You've been like this for weeks. It's exhausting." She stormed upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, looking at her keys. I picked them up. The key fob for her car felt heavy in my hand. I pressed the unlock button. The Honda in the garage chirped. I walked out to it. The driver's seat was pushed all the way back. Sarah is 5'4". I am 6'1". When she drives, the seat is practically hugging the steering wheel. When I drive, it's back. But I hadn't driven her car in a month. I went upstairs. She was in the shower. I opened the door. "Sarah, why was your driver's seat pushed back?" She poked her head out from behind the curtain, shampoo in her hair. "What?" "The seat. In your car. It's all the way back. Like someone tall was driving it." She stared at me for a long, uncomfortable silence. Then she shook her head, water flying. "I moved it back to clean the floor mats yesterday." "You are imagining things, Mark. Seriously. Stop." She closed the curtain. I stood there, feeling the steam curl around me. I felt crazy. Maybe she did clean the mats. Maybe she did tell me about jogging. Maybe the stress of the merger at work was bleeding into my brain. I walked out of the bathroom, telling myself to let it go. But the seed was planted. Over the next month, the incidents multiplied. I would hear a phone vibrate in the living room when we were watching TV. I would ask, "Is that you?" She would say, "No, my phone is on silent." I would search the cushions and find nothing. She would look at me with pity. "Hearing phantom vibrations is a symptom of high anxiety," she said one night, handing me a cup of tea. "Maybe you should see Dr. Evans again." I did see Dr. Evans. I sat on his beige couch and told him I was losing time. I told him I heard sounds that weren't there. I told him I suspected my wife was lying to me, but every time I checked, she had a logical explanation. He prescribed me anti-anxiety medication. I took the pills. They made me numb, but they didn't stop the feeling in my gut that something was wrong. The breaking point came last Saturday. We were supposed to go to her sister's house for a barbecue. Sarah went out to the car to get it ready, while I finished packing the cooler. I came out 10 minutes later. She was sitting in the driver's seat, staring at her lap. When she saw me, she jumped. Not a little startle, but a full-body jerk. She slammed something down onto the floorboard. I opened the passenger door. "You okay?" "Fine," she said, her voice an octave too high. "Just dropped my lipstick." She leaned down and retrieved a tube of lipstick from the floor mat. She smiled, but her hands were shaking. I got in the car. We drove to the barbecue. The whole way there, she was manic. Talking about the weather, the neighbors, a show she wanted to watch. She was filling the silence with noise, so I wouldn't ask questions. But I was watching. I watched her eyes dart to the rearview mirror every 30 seconds. I watched her hand tap rhythmically on her thigh. She was terrified. When we got to the party, I played the role of the happy husband. I flipped burgers. I drank a beer with her brother-in-law. But my mind was in the Honda. What had she slammed down? Lipstick doesn't make a heavy thud. Midway through the party, Sarah realized she forgot the potato salad in the car. "I'll get it," I said, standing up. "No," she shouted. Everyone turned to look at us. She blushed. "I mean, sit down, honey. You've been working hard. I'll get it." She practically sprinted to the driveway. I watched her go. A cold dread settled in my stomach. She wasn't hiding a person. She wasn't hiding drugs. She was hiding information. That night, I waited. I waited until she did her nightly routine. Face wash. Serum. Retinol. Teeth. Bed. She fell asleep quickly, the exhaustion of the deception weighing on her. I waited another hour. I listened to her breathing level out. I slipped out of bed. I didn't put on shoes. I walked through the house in my socks, avoiding the creaky floorboard in the hallway. I grabbed the spare key to her car from the hook in the mudroom. I went into the garage. It was pitch black. I didn't turn on the light. I used the flashlight on my phone, keeping the beam low. I opened the passenger door. I looked at the floor mat. Nothing. I looked in the glove box. Registration, insurance, napkins, a tire gauge. I looked in the center console. Gum, charging cables, change. I sat in the driver's seat. I felt around the door pockets. Nothing. I was starting to feel the shame again. The voice of Dr. Evans in my head. You are projecting your insecurities onto your wife, Mark. I leaned back, closing my eyes. I was about to give up. My hand dropped down to the side of the seat, between the cushion and the center console. My fingers brushed against something. Not carpet. Not plastic. Tape. My heart hammered against my ribs. I shined the light down. It was hard to see. I got out of the car and laid on the floor of the garage, looking under the seat. There it was. Taped to the metal railing of the seat adjustment mechanism was a black bundle. It was wrapped tight in electrical tape. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely peel it off. I ripped the tape, the sound echoing loud in the silent garage. It fell into my hand. A Samsung Galaxy. An older model, maybe 5 years old. Cracked screen. Pay as you go. I sat up, holding the device. I pressed the power button. The battery was at 14%. It booted up. The glow of the screen felt radioactive in the dark garage. Swipe to unlock. No passcode. She was arrogant. Or maybe just careless. I opened the phone. My thumb hovered over the messages icon. This was the moment of no return. If I opened this and it was nothing, if it was a surprise party, or a weird hobby she was embarrassed about, I was a monster. If it was what I feared, my life was over. I tapped the icon. The inbox was full. Hundreds of messages. All to and from one contact. No name. Just a saved number. I clicked the most recent thread. Sarah, he's getting suspicious. He saw the seat was moved. Number, you need to be more careful. We are too close. Sarah, I know. I convinced him he's paranoid. He's taking the meds. I felt like I had been punched in the throat. She knew. She knew I was taking medication for a condition she invented. She was mocking me. I scrolled up. Number, I need another $5,000 by Friday. The interest is compounding. Sarah, I can't. Mark checks the joint account. I already maxed out the emergency credit card. Number, figure it out. Or I call him. Sarah, don't. Please. I'll sell the jewelry my grandmother left me. Just give me 2 days. Number, you have until Friday noon. I stared at the screen. Money. It was about money. But who was this? A lover? A blackmailer? I went to the call log. Calls every day. Sometimes for an hour. Mostly when I was at work. I went back to the messages and scrolled back months. Sarah, I lost it all. Number, I told you not to double down on the yen. Sarah, I thought it was a sure thing. The signals were there. Number, you're sloppy. This is why you need me. Send the transfer fee and I can recover the initial pot. Sarah, how much? Number, $10,000. Sarah, I'll take it from the college fund. Mark never checks that account. The college fund. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the concrete floor. I scrambled to pick it up, checking for damage. It was fine. I opened my banking app on my own phone. My hands were trembling so violently I mistyped my password 3 times. I finally got in. I navigated to the savings accounts. The Leo College Fund account. Balance, $43.12. It should have been $60,000. We had been saving since Leo was born. My parents contributed. Her parents contributed. Every bonus I ever got went into that account. Gone. I felt bile rise in my throat. I gagged, swallowing it down. I checked the other accounts. The emergency fund was empty. The joint savings had a balance of $500. She had wiped us out. I looked back at the burner phone. Who was she talking to? Double down on the yen. Trading. She was gambling on currency markets. Day trading. I opened the photo gallery on the burner phone. It wasn't photos of a lover. It was screenshots. Screenshots of charts, graphs, wins, losses, massive losses, screenshots of transfers to offshore accounts. And then a video. I clicked play. The sound was off, but I turned it up slightly. It was Sarah. She was sitting in her car, crying. She was talking to the camera. "I can fix this," she whispered to the phone. "I just need one big win. Just one. Then I can put it all back and Mark will never know. I'm smart. I can beat the algorithm. I just need capital." She looked deranged. Her eyes were red, her hair messy. This was the Sarah I saw when she came back from her runs. The desperation. I sat on the garage floor for an hour. I read every message. It wasn't just trading. It was a cult of personality. The number was a mentor she found online. A guru who promised infinite returns if you followed his system. He had bled her dry. He charged her for signals. He charged her for coaching. He charged her penalty fees when she lost. She wasn't just a victim. She was a willing participant. She lied to me. She gaslit me. She medicated me to keep me docile while she set our life on fire. I looked at the timestamp of the last message. "You have until Friday noon. Today is Wednesday." I needed a plan. I couldn't just wake her up and scream. She would deny it. She would say the phone wasn't hers. She would say I planted it. She was a master manipulator. I needed to nail her to the wall. I took the phone. I went into the house. I went to the kitchen and got a stash of Ziploc bags. I put the phone in a bag to avoid fingerprints, though mine were already all over it. I took photos of the phone with my own phone. I took photos of the messages. I scrolled through the entire text history, recording a video of the screen with my phone. I exported the chat logs to a dummy email address I created right there. Then, I went back to the garage. I taped the phone back under the seat. I made sure the tape looked exactly as it had before. I went back to bed. I lay next to her. I listened to her breathe. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vomit. But I did nothing. I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. When she woke up, I was already dressed. "Morning," she yawned, stretching. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. My voice sounded flat, robotic. "Work stress." She came over and rubbed my back. "Oh, honey. Did you take your pill last night?" The audacity. The sheer, unadulterated evil of that question. "I did," I lied. "It helps." "Good," she said, kissing my cheek. "I'm going to go for a run before I start work." "Okay," I said. "Have a good run." She left. I watched her from the window. She didn't run. She walked to the car, got in, and sat there. I knew what she was doing. She was checking the phone. She was checking if number had replied. I went to work. But I didn't go to the office. I went to the bank. I sat down with a manager. We went through everything. It was worse than I thought. She had taken out a home equity line of credit in my name. She had forged my signature. The notary was a friend of hers from high school. I stared at the documents. The signature looked just like mine. She had practiced. "Mr. Thompson," the manager said, looking at me with pity. "This is serious fraud. We can freeze everything, but the money that is gone, it's likely unrecoverable if it was sent to offshore crypto exchanges." "Freeze it," I said. "Freeze everything. My credit cards. The joint accounts. Put a lock on my credit report." "Your wife will be declined if she tries to use any card," the manager warned. "I know," I said. I left the bank and went to a lawyer. I paid the retainer with a personal credit card she didn't know about. I filed for divorce. I filed for an emergency restraining order to freeze assets. I filed for full custody of Leo. Then I went to pick up Leo from kindergarten early. "Daddy!" he yelled, running to me. I hugged him so tight he squeaked. "Hey buddy. We're going on an adventure." "Where's Mommy?" "Mommy is busy," I said. "It's just us for a few days." I took him to a hotel 2 towns over. I paid cash. I turned off my phone locator. At 5 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls from Sarah. 14 texts. "Sarah, my card got declined at the grocery store. What is going on?" "Sarah, Mark? Pick up." "Sarah, why are the accounts frozen?" "Sarah, where are you? The school said you picked up Leo. Call me now." "Sarah, I'm calling the police." I texted her back once. "Mark, I found the phone under the seat. I know about the college fund. I know about the HELOC. I know about the pills you made me take. Don't call the police. The bank already called the FBI regarding the wire transfers. Talk to my lawyer." I turned my phone off. That was 3 hours ago. Now I am sitting here, watching Leo sleep in the other bed. The TV is on mute. I feel hollow. I feel like my life has been hollowed out with a spoon. But I also feel something else. Clarity. I am not crazy. I am not imagining things. I did not lose my keys. I did not forget conversations. I was being hunted. And the predator was sleeping in my bed. The hardest part isn't the money. I can make more money. I can work overtime. I can sell the house. The hardest part is the memories. I'm replaying the last 2 years of my life. Every fight we had where I apologized. Every time I felt guilty for being forgetful. Every time she comforted me. It was all performance art. She was comforting me for the wounds she inflicted. She destroyed our future to buy lottery tickets sold by a scam artist on Telegram. I wonder what she is doing right now. Is she panicking? Is she crying? Is she calling Number for help? Number won't help her. Number is probably gone, ghosting her the moment the money stopped flowing. She is alone in that house. The house she mortgaged behind my back. I look at Leo. He looks just like her. He has her nose. Her chin. I hope he doesn't have her heart. I have to be strong for him. I have to rebuild. But right now, I just want to sleep. I want to sleep without wondering if the person next to me is calculating my net worth. The scariest thing is, even now, part of me wants to call her. Part of me wants to hear her explanation. Part of me hopes there is an explanation that makes this okay. That she was brainwashed. That she was coerced. That she isn't evil, just sick. But then I remember the text. I convinced him he's paranoid. He's taking the meds. That wasn't sickness. That was strategy. I am not a husband to her. I am a resource. And the resource has finally dried up. I will update if anything happens. But for now, I am watching the door, and I have the chain on. I don't trust anyone anymore. Not even myself. Because I let this happen. I saw the signs and I let her talk me out of them. Never let anyone tell you what you see. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. Trust your gut. It's the only thing that won't lie to you. Update 1. It has been 24 hours since I left. The fallout has been nuclear. I turned my phone on this morning to check in with my lawyer. Sarah has been blowing up my phone, but not just mine. She called my mother. She called my boss. She called our friends. The narrative she is spinning is breathtaking. She told my mother that I have had a psychotic break. She said I kidnapped Leo and that I'm off my medication. She told my boss that I'm having a mental health crisis and to please excuse my erratic behavior. My mother called me, weeping. "Mark, please, just tell us you're safe. Sarah is so worried. She says you're hallucinating again." "I'm not hallucinating, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Did Sarah tell you about the $40,000 missing from Leo's college fund?" Silence on the other end. "What?" my mother whispered. "Ask her, Mom. Ask her to show you the balance of the college fund. Ask her about the second mortgage on the house. Ask her about the burner phone taped under her car seat." "Mark, she said you're making things up." "I have screenshots, Mom. I have bank statements. I sent them to your email. Look at them before you talk to her again." I hung up. I shouldn't have involved my mother, but Sarah is weaponizing our family against me. She is trying to discredit me before the truth comes out. If everyone thinks I'm crazy, no one will believe the fraud. It's her only play left. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, called me at noon. She's retained counsel, he said. A guy named Vinnie Tortelli. Strip mall lawyer. He's aggressive. What do they want? She wants you to return the child immediately. She's claiming parental alienation. She's also claiming financial abuse because you cut off her cards. I laughed. A bitter, dry bark of a laugh. Financial abuse? She stole 6 figures from us. We know that, Mark. But the courts move slow. However, I have good news. The forensic accountant looked at the statements you pulled. It's a Ponzi scheme. The platform she was using isn't a trading exchange. It's a fake website designed to look like one. The money she sent didn't go to investments. It went to shell companies in Cyprus. So the money is gone. Likely. But it proves she wasn't just bad with money. She was engaging in high-risk, illicit wire transfers. It helps our custody case. It shows instability. Does she know it's a scam yet? I asked. I don't think so, Henderson said. Her lawyer is demanding access to funds so she can manage her positions. She still thinks she can win it back. That is the tragedy. She is currently fighting me not to save our marriage, but to get money to feed the beast that ate our marriage. I went to the hotel lobby to get coffee. I felt exposed. Every time a car pulled into the lot, I flinched. I know she doesn't know where I am, but the paranoia she cultivated in me is hard to shake. I sat with Leo while he watched cartoons. He asked about Mommy again. Is Mommy sick? He asked. Yes, I said. Mommy is very sick. In her head. And she needs to get better before we can see her. Like a cold. No, buddy. Not like a cold. At 4 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I froze. I grabbed the heavy lamp from the bedside table. I motioned for Leo to go into the bathroom and close the door. Who is it? I called out. Room service. I didn't order room service. I went to the peephole. It was a man in a hotel uniform. But he was looking down, hiding his face. I didn't order anything, I said through the door. Complimentary fruit basket for Mr. Thompson, the voice mumbled. I stepped back. How did they know my name? I checked in under cash. I didn't give my real name at the desk. I used my middle name and my mother's maiden name. Leave it outside, I said. I waited. I watched through the peephole. The man didn't leave the basket. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away fast. He wasn't wearing hotel shoes. He was wearing beat-up sneakers. I packed our bags in 3 minutes. We were out the back exit before I even processed what happened. How did they find me? The phone. The burner phone. I took photos of it, but I didn't take the phone with me. I left it under the seat. But I had accessed my email from the hotel Wi-Fi. No, that's paranoid. Then it hit me. The iPad. Leo's iPad. I had grabbed it for him to play games. It has a cellular connection. It's linked to our family sharing plan. Sarah can see the location of all Apple devices in the family. I am an idiot. I pulled over at a gas station. I took the iPad. I'm sorry, Leo, I said. I smashed it against the brick wall of the dumpster enclosure. Shattered the screen. Then I threw it in the dumpster. Leo started crying. I felt like the worst father in the world. I bought him a candy bar and promised him a new one. We are driving now. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm heading to a friend's cabin up north. A friend Sarah doesn't like. A friend she doesn't know the address of. I checked my email one last time before ditching the SIM card in my own phone. There was an email from Sarah. Subject: Please, Mark. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But you don't understand. I did this for us. I was trying to build a future where you didn't have to work that soul-sucking job. I was so close. The system works, Mark. I just had a bad run of luck. Please come home. The guys I borrowed from are asking questions. They know you froze the accounts. They said if I don't pay the interest by tomorrow, they are going to come to the house. I'm scared, Mark. Please unfreeze the account. Just for the interest payment. $5,000. That's all I need. Then I can fix this. I love you. Please don't let them hurt me. I stared at the email. The guys I borrowed from. She didn't just lose our money. She borrowed more. From loan sharks. Real ones. The man at the hotel door. He wasn't room service. He was debt collection. She gave them my name. She probably told them I have the money. She pointed the wolves at me to save herself. I replied, "Call the police. Get out of the house." Then I threw my phone out the window onto the highway. I am done. I cannot save her. I can only save Leo. We are on the road. It's getting dark. The trees are closing in. But for the first time in months, I know exactly what is real. The danger is real. The betrayal is real. And I am not imagining a damn thing. Update 2. It's been 4 days since I threw my phone out the window. We are safe. The cabin is off-grid. No cell service, but there is a satellite internet uplinking that I'm using right now. My lawyer Henderson contacted me via the secure email we set up. The police raided our house 2 days ago. Not because of the fraud. Because of a disturbance. Neighbors called 911 after hearing glass breaking and screaming. When the cops arrived, the front door was kicked in. Sarah was there. She was beaten. Badly. Broken arm, fractured orbital socket. The house was trashed. They were looking for cash. They didn't find any, so they took it out on her. She is in the hospital. She told the police it was a home invasion. Random robbery. She is protecting the loan sharks. She is still protecting the lie. Henderson says Child Protective Services is involved now. Given the violence at the home and her hospitalization, they have granted me emergency temporary custody. I don't have to run anymore. But I'm not going back to that town. I should feel vindicated. I should feel a sense of I told you so. But I don't. I just feel sick. I looked at the photos of the damage to the house that Henderson sent. My recliner was slashed open. The TV was smashed. The walls were spray-painted. And in the middle of the chaos, on the kitchen counter, the police found a note. It wasn't from the loan sharks. It was from Sarah. It was written before they arrived. Mark, if you find this, the password to the crypto wallet is your birthday. There is $200 left. Take care of Leo. She knew they were coming. She stayed. She didn't leave like I told her to. Why? Maybe she thought she could talk her way out of it. Maybe she thought she deserved it. Or maybe she was just waiting for the consequences to finally catch up to her so she didn't have to run anymore. I'm going to drive down tomorrow. I have to give a statement to the police. I have to face her. I'm terrified. Not of her lies anymore, but of seeing the woman I loved reduced to this. A battered, bankrupt addict who sold her family for a dopamine hit. I looked at Leo this morning. He was catching frogs by the creek. He seems happy. He's resilient. Dad, he asked me, are we going home soon? No, buddy, I said. We're going to find a new home. With Mommy. I paused. How do you answer that? Mommy has to go away for a long time to learn how to tell the truth, I said. He nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Okay. Lying is bad. Mrs. Gable says lying makes your nose grow. Yeah, I said, choking back a sob. Something like that. My nose didn't grow. But my eyes are wide open now. If you are reading this and your partner makes you feel crazy, if they tell you that the sky is green and the grass is blue, stop listening to them. Start looking. Look under the seats. Look in the bank accounts. Look at the shoes. The truth is always there. It's just usually hiding in the places you trust too much to check. I'm signing off now. I have a long drive tomorrow. I have to go bury my marriage and try to resurrect my life. Stay safe. And check your credit reports. Mark. I am looking at a spreadsheet that details exactly how much my brother loves me. It is not a lot. In fact, according to the numbers in column D, his love for me is currently sitting at a deficit of $42,000. That is the amount of money he stole from me while looking me dead in the eye and crying about how he couldn't afford to buy his daughter braces. 2 days ago, I thought we were discussing the painful necessary sale of the home our parents built with their own hands. Today, I know that conversation was a smokescreen. I am not dealing with a grieving son. I am dealing with a landlord who forgot to tell his business partner that the business was open. My name is David, and my brother is Mark. We are the only two left. Mom passed away 3 years ago from a sudden stroke, and Dad followed her 18 months later. They left us a decent inheritance, mostly tied up in 2 assets. The first was a modest investment portfolio which we split immediately and without issue. Mark bought a new truck and took his family to Disney World. I put mine into a retirement fund. That was the dynamic. Mark lived for today, and I worried about tomorrow. The second asset was the house. It is a 4-bedroom colonial in a suburb that has exploded in value over the last decade. It is the house where I learned to walk. It is the house where Mark broke his arm jumping off the garage roof. It is the house where we held the wake for Mom. When Dad died, the will was clear. The house was left to us 50/50ths. We were tenants in common. The mortgage was fully paid off in 1998. It was a free and clear asset worth roughly $600,000. For the first year after Dad died, we were on the same page. We were both too emotionally raw to deal with clearing it out. We agreed to keep it. We would split the property taxes and the insurance. I live 3 hours away in the city, working as a logistics manager. Mark lives 20 minutes from the house. Because of the proximity, Mark volunteered to check on the place. He said he would mow the lawn, collect the mail, and make sure the pipes didn't freeze. I offered to pay a landscaping service, but Mark insisted. He said it was his way of feeling close to Dad. He said he liked going over there on weekends to tinker in the garage. I trusted him. I had no reason not to. We were brothers. We had never fought about money before, mostly because I never loaned him any. I knew he was impulsive, but I never thought he was malicious. The trouble started 6 months ago. Mark called me on a Tuesday night. I remember I was heating up leftovers and half watching a documentary. His voice was tight. He sounded like he was on the verge of a panic attack. He told me we needed to sell the house. He said the market was peaking and we were idiots for sitting on $500,000 of dead equity. He said the house was deteriorating. He claimed the roof was leaking and the foundation was showing cracks. He sent me photos of a water stain on the ceiling of the master bedroom and a crack in the basement cement. I told him to calm down. I told him we could fix the roof. We had the money. We could pull from the house account. We both contributed $200 a month into a joint checking account specifically for maintenance and taxes. Mark exploded. He told me the account was empty. I froze. I asked him how the account could be empty. We had been putting money in for 18 months and we hadn't done any major repairs. That account should have had nearly $7,000 in it. He told me he had to use it for emergency repairs over the winter. He listed them off fast. A burst pipe in the guest bathroom. A furnace repair. A tree that fell and needed removal. He said he didn't want to bother me with the details because I was busy with work. He said he handled it, but the money was gone, and now the roof was going and he couldn't afford his share of a new roof. He said he was drowning. He admitted he had credit card debt. He said his wife, Lisa, was pressuring him. They needed the cash. He practically begged me. He said if we didn't sell, I was holding him hostage. I felt terrible. I am the older brother. I felt like I had abandoned him to deal with the burden of the property while I sat comfortably in my apartment 3 hours away. I felt guilty that he had dealt with burst pipes and fallen trees alone. I told him I would think about it. I told him I wasn't ready to let the house go, but I understood his position. I offered a compromise. I told him I would pay for the roof myself. I would cover the entire cost, and we could deduce it from the eventual sale whenever that happened. He refused. He said he didn't want a new roof. He wanted out. He wanted the check. We spent the next 3 months in a Cold War. He would call me 3 times a week. Sometimes he was angry, accusing me of being selfish and controlling. Sometimes he was weepy, talking about how much stress he was under. He told me the house was a rotting albatross around our necks. He told me the neighborhood was going downhill. He told me that if we waited, the value would tank. I started to cave. I didn't want the money, but I didn't want to lose my brother. The relationship was becoming toxic. I decided that preserving our bond was more important than preserving the building. I called him last week and told him I was ready. I said I would drive down, we would meet with a realtor, and we would list it. His reaction was weird. He didn't sound relieved. He sounded frantic. He told me not to come down. He said he had a friend who was a realtor and he could handle everything. He said he would get the paperwork drawn up and mail it to me. He said I didn't need to take time off work. He said the house was a mess and he needed to clean it out before I saw it because he didn't want me to get upset about the state of Dad's things. That triggered something in me. It was the specific way he said he didn't want me to see the mess. Mark is not a cleaner. Mark is the guy who leaves pizza boxes on the floor for 3 days. If the house was messy, it was because he made it messy. But the idea that he wanted to spare my feelings felt false. Mark uses feelings as leverage. He doesn't protect them. I told him I was coming anyway. I told him I wanted to walk through the house one last time before we sold it. I told him I wanted to pick out a few of Mom's knickknacks that I had left behind. He tried to block me. He said he lost the spare key. He said the lock was jammed. He said he was going to be out of town for the weekend, so he couldn't let me in. I told him I had my own key. There was a silence on the other end of the line that lasted 5 seconds too long. Then he said okay. He said he would meet me there on Saturday at noon. I didn't wait for Saturday. I took Friday off. I didn't tell him. I drove down on Friday morning. It was a gray drive, just highway and anxiety. I kept replaying our conversations in my head. The urgency. The conflicting stories about the repairs. The refusal to let me pay for the roof. I pulled onto our street around 11 a.m. The neighborhood looked exactly the same. Same oak trees. Same manicured lawns. It didn't look like it was going downhill at all. I pulled up to the house. There was a Honda Civic in the driveway. I didn't recognize the car. Mark drives a massive pickup truck. Lisa drives an SUV. This was a gray sedan with a bumper sticker that said, "My dog is smarter than your honor student." I parked on the street, 2 houses down. I sat in my car and watched. I thought maybe Mark had a friend over. Maybe a contractor. Then the front door opened. A woman walked out. She was wearing scrubs and holding a travel mug. She looked to be about 30. She walked to the Honda, unlocked it, and drove away. My stomach dropped. I knew instantly. I didn't want to know, but I knew. I got out of my car and walked up the driveway. The lawn was cut. There were flowers in the pots on the porch. Mom's pots. The ones Mark said were cracked and broken. They looked fine. I walked up to the front door. I took out my key. I hesitated. If I was wrong, and this was just a friend of Mark's staying over, I was about to commit a breaking and entering felony. But my name is on the deed. This is my house. I put the key in the lock. It didn't turn. I jiggled it. I pulled it back a bit. Nothing. He had changed the locks. I walked around the back. The backyard was immaculate. There was a grill I didn't recognize. There was a child's plastic slide near the big oak tree. I went to the back door. Locked. I peered through the kitchen window. The kitchen was fully furnished. But it wasn't Mom's furniture. The old oak table was gone, replaced by a modern glass one. There were drawings on the fridge held up by magnets. There was a coffee maker on the counter that was definitely not there 3 years ago. I knocked on the back door. Hard. No answer. I sat on the back porch steps and took out my phone. I called Mark. He answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said. "I thought you were coming tomorrow." "I am," I lied. "I'm just planning my drive." "Hey, remind me, did you ever fix that burst pipe in the guest bathroom?" "Yeah," he said immediately. "Cost me a fortune." "Why?" "Just wondering." "And the roof? Is it still leaking?" "It's bad, Dave. Every time it rains I have to go over there with buckets. The place smells like mold. It's uninhabitable, really. That's why we need to sell fast. A flipper might take it, but a family won't touch it." "Uninhabitable," I repeated. "Completely. Dad's stuff is ruined. I had to throw a lot of it out. The mold got to the boxes." I looked through the window again. I saw a very clean, very dry kitchen. Okay, I said. See you tomorrow. I hung up. I didn't leave. I waited. 2 hours later, another car pulled up. A Ford Focus. A man got out. He was wearing a uniform for a local HVAC company. He carried a bag of groceries. He walked to the front door, unlocked it, and went inside. I walked around to the front and knocked. The man opened the door. He looked surprised to see me, but not scared. He looked like a man answering the door of his own home. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Hi," I said. "I'm David. I'm Mark's brother." The man's face lit up. "Oh, Mark. Yeah, great guy. I'm Tom. Is he coming by? He usually texts first." "No," I said. "He's not coming. I was just in the neighborhood. Do you mind if I come in?" Tom hesitated. "Oh, sure. Is everything okay? Mark said you lived out of state." "I do. I'm just visiting." I stepped inside. The foyer was painted a light blue. Mom's wallpaper was gone. The smell hit me. It didn't smell like mold. It smelled like fabric softener and garlic. It smelled lived in. "Where's Sarah?" Tom asked. "She's usually home by now." "I think I saw her leave earlier," I said. We walked into the living room. It was fully furnished. Nice stuff. Not expensive, but clean. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "how long have you guys been here?" Tom looked at me, confused. "Since last November. Almost a year now." November. Mark had told me about the burst pipe in January. He had told me about the empty account in March. "And how do you like it?" I asked. "We love it," Tom said. "The rent is a steal, honestly. Mark's been great. He hasn't raised it on us even though the market is crazy." "The rent," I said. "How much is the rent?" $1,800, Tom said. "Includes water and trash. We pay electric and gas. $1,800 a month. For 11 months. That was nearly $20,000. And you pay Mark directly?" "Yeah, Venmo. First of the month. Never missed a payment." I felt physically ill. I looked around the room. "And the repairs?" "The roof." Tom laughed. "The roof is fine. We had one issue with the dishwasher when we moved in, but Mark replaced it the next day. He's a really responsive landlord. Best we've ever had." "That's great," I said. "That's really great." I needed to leave before I punched a hole in the wall. "Listen, Tom," I said. "I actually need to run. I just wanted to say hi. Please don't tell Mark I stopped by. I want to surprise him tomorrow." Tom grinned. "My lips are sealed. Nice to meet you, David." I walked back to my car. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't put the key in the ignition. Mark had been renting our house for almost a year. He had collected $20,000 in rent. He had lied about the repairs to drain our maintenance account. That was another $7,000. He had lied about the condition of the house to pressure me into selling. But why sell? If he was making pure profit, why force a sale? Then it hit me. The tenants. Sarah and Tom. If I came down to visit, I would see them. He had to keep me away. But he couldn't keep me away forever. Eventually, I would want to see the house. He wasn't selling because the market was high. He was selling because he was terrified of getting caught. If he sold the house quickly to a friend or a wholesaler, probably someone he was colluding with, or just a quick cash buyer, he could kick the tenants out, stage the empty house, and hand me my half of the sale price. I would never know about the rent. I would never know about the fake repairs. He was trying to launder the house to hide his theft. I drove to a motel 3 towns over. I didn't want to be near him. I needed to think. I called my wife, Ellen. She was at work. "He's renting it," I said when she picked up. "What?" "Mark. He has tenants. They've been there a year. He's stealing everything." Ellen was silent for a long time. She never liked Mark. She always said he was slippery. I always defended him. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know. I'm meeting him tomorrow. Get a lawyer, she said. Now. Do not talk to him without a plan. Do not sign anything. She was right. I spent the rest of Friday night on my laptop. I pulled up the county property records online. No liens. Taxes were paid. I pulled up my bank statements. I highlighted every transfer I sent to the joint account. I made the spreadsheet. Column A, money I sent. Column B, money that was in the account when Dad died. Column C, estimated rent based on Tom's confession. Column D, the total theft. It came to roughly $42,000. That included the drained account, my contributions, and my half of the rent he pocketed. But it was worse than the money. It was the gaslighting. The way he made me feel guilty for abandoning the house. The way he made me feel like a bad brother for not letting him sell. He had used my love for him as a weapon to protect his scam. Saturday morning came. I dressed in a suit. I don't wear suits often, but I wanted to send a message. This wasn't a brotherly visit. This was business. I drove to the house at 11:45 a.m. The Honda and the Ford were gone. Mark's truck was in the driveway. He was standing on the porch, pacing. When he saw my car, he put on a smile. It was a fake, tight smile. I got out. I didn't smile back. "Davy," he shouted. "Good to see you, man. You made good time." He walked down the driveway to hug me. I didn't hug him back. I stood stiff. He patted my shoulder awkwardly and stepped back. "You okay?" he asked. "You look intense." "Let's go inside," I said. "Yeah, sure. Listen, it's a mess in there. Like I said, the smell is bad. I brought masks if you want one." He reached into his pocket. "I don't need a mask," I said. He unlocked the door. He had the key. Of course he did. We stepped inside. The house was empty. My heart skipped a beat. The furniture was gone. The drawings on the fridge were gone. The smell of garlic was faint, masked by a heavy scent of pine sol. He had cleared them out. In less than 24 hours, he had moved an entire family out of the house. "Where are the tenants?" I asked. I didn't shout. I asked it calmly. Mark froze. His back was to me. He was closing the door. He stayed like that for a second, hand on the knob. "What?" he said. He turned around. His face was a mask of confusion. "What tenants?" "Tom and Sarah," I said. "And the dog. The one that's smarter than an honor student." Mark's face went pale. Not white, but gray. He licked his lips. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dave. Have you been drinking?" "I was here yesterday," I said. "I met Tom. Nice guy. Works in HVAC. Told me he pays you $1,800 a month. Told me you're a great landlord. Responsive. Fix the dishwasher immediately." Mark stared at me. His eyes darted around the room as if looking for an exit. "You're crazy," he said. "There's nobody living here. Look around. It's empty." "Because you moved them out," I said. "Where did you put them? A hotel? Did you tell them you were fumigating? Or did you just pay them to leave for the weekend?" "I didn't move anyone out." Mark shouted. "You're delusional. I've been maintaining this dump for 2 years. Me. Alone. And you come down here throwing accusations." I pulled a folder out of my bag. I opened it. Here is a printout of the Venmo transactions Tom showed me on his phone. I asked him to screenshot them and email them to me. He was very helpful once I told him I was the owner and I didn't know who he was. That was a bluff. I hadn't gotten the screenshots. But Mark didn't know that. Mark looked at the folder. He didn't open it. He slumped against the wall. The fight went out of him instantly. He slid down until he was sitting on the floor of the foyer. He put his head in his hands. "I needed the money," he whispered. "Get up," I said. "I lost my job," he said into his hands. 8 months ago. I didn't tell you. Lisa doesn't know. I've been pretending to go to work every day." "Get up," I said again. He looked up at me. There were tears in his eyes. Real tears this time. "I was going to pay you back," he said. "I swear. Once the house sold, I was going to give you the extra." I just needed to float the mortgage on my place. I was going to lose my house, Dave. My kids would have been homeless. You have a $400,000 house, I said. You have 2 cars. You went to Disney World. You're not poor, Mark. You're broke. There's a difference. I was drowning, he screamed. You have no idea. You sit up there in your condo with your dual income and no kids and you judge me. It's expensive raising a family. I did what I had to do. You stole from me, I said. You stole $42,000. And you tried to trick me into selling the only thing Mom and Dad left us so you could cover your tracks. I did the work, he argued. He stood up now, angry again. I found the tenants. I managed the property. I mowed the lawn. I took the risk. You did nothing. You just waited for the check. Why should you get half the rent when I did all the work? Because it's half my house, I said. And because you didn't ask. If you had asked, I might have said yes. If you had told me you lost your job, I would have helped you. But you didn't. You lied. You lied every single day for a year. He paced the hallway. So what now? You gonna sue me? You gonna drag your brother to court over money? I might, I said. Mom would be ashamed of you, he spat. Counting pennies while your brother starves. That broke me. Mom, I said, my voice shaking, would be devastated that you turned her home into a crime scene. She would be heartbroken that you looked me in the eye and lied about the roof leaking. Do not bring Mom into this. I walked into the kitchen. The table was gone, but I could see the indentations in the linoleum where it had been. Here is what is going to happen, I said. Mark followed me, looking wary. We are not selling the house, I said. What? We have to. I can't. We are not selling, I repeated. I am buying you out. Mark blinked. You can't afford that. I can, I said. I have excellent credit. I have equity in my condo. I can get a mortgage to cover half the value of this place. Fine, Mark said. 600,000. My half is 300. Cut me a check and I'm gone. No, I said. We are going to get an appraisal. A real one. Not your friend the realtor. Let's say it comes in at 600. Your share is 300. I took a pen out of my pocket and wrote on the back of the folder. Minus the 42,000 you stole. I didn't steal. Minus the 42,000, I said louder. And minus legal fees if I have to get a lawyer involved to force this partition. So let's call it 250. That's robbery. Mark yelled. That's math, I said. And here is the other condition. You tell Lisa. Mark went still. No. No way. You can't tell her. I won't tell her, I said. You will. You will tell her you lost your job. You will tell her what you did. Because if you don't, I will. And I have the receipts, as the kids say. She'll leave me, Mark whispered. She might, I said. But that's not my fault. That's yours. You have been living a lie, Mark. It stops today. I left him standing in the empty kitchen. I walked out to my car. I sat there for a minute, watching the house. I saw the curtain in the living room move. He was watching me. I drove home. I didn't turn on the radio. The next week was a blur of paperwork. I hired a real estate attorney. I sent Mark a formal letter outlining the buyout. He fought it at first. He sent me texts calling me a greedy bastard. He sent me texts begging me to reconsider. He sent me a text at 2 a.m. saying he was sorry. I didn't reply to any of them. I let the lawyer handle it. We closed on the buyout 2 months later. The appraisal came in at $620. I deducted the stolen rent, the drained account, and the cost of the repairs he never made. I also deducted the cost of the new locks I had to install. I wrote him a check for $260,000. I own the house now. I called Tom and Sarah. I found their number on a piece of mail that had slipped behind the radiator. They were staying at a Motel 6. Mark had told them he was selling the house and they had 24 hours to vacate or he would call the police. He told them they were squatters. He had bullied them out. I met them for coffee. I apologized. I told them Mark was no longer involved. I offered them the house back. They refused. They were too shaken up. They found a new place. But I gave them their security deposit back, money Mark had spent long ago. It cost me $2,000, but it felt like the right thing to do. I rented the house out again. I found a nice young couple. I charged them fair market rent. The money goes into a new account. I use it to pay the mortgage I took out to buy Mark's share. I haven't spoken to Mark since the closing. I heard from my aunt that Lisa filed for divorce. Turns out, the job loss and the house theft were just the tip of the iceberg. There was gambling debt. There were other loans. When the $260,000 hit his account, the creditors swarmed. I don't feel happy about it. I don't feel vindicated. I feel lonely. I went to the house last weekend to inspect the gutters. The new tenants have planted tulips in the front yard. They look nice. I stood in the driveway and looked at the garage roof. I remembered Mark jumping off it when he was 10. I remembered him crying when he broke his arm. I remembered Dad carrying him to the car, telling him it was going to be okay. I remembered me holding the door open for them. I miss my brother. I miss the brother I thought I had. But that brother died with my parents. The man who is left is a stranger who wears my brother's face. I walked back to my car. I checked my spreadsheet one last time. Every column was balanced. The debt was paid. The house was safe. But some deficits can never be filled. Update: 3 months later. I didn't expect my post to blow up like this. I've read all your comments. A lot of you said I was too hard on him. A lot of you said I wasn't hard enough. I wanted to give a small update because things have gotten complicated. After the divorce papers were served, Mark hit rock bottom. He moved into a studio apartment. He works at a warehouse now. It's honest work. The first honest work he's done in a while. He called me last week. It was the first time we'd spoken since the closing table where we signed the papers in silence. He sounded different. Sober. Tired. He asked if he could see Mom and Dad's photo albums. He said he didn't want the money. He didn't want the house. He just wanted the pictures. I hesitated. Part of me, the angry part, the part that remembers the lies, wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him he forfeited his right to our history when he tried to sell it out from under me. But then I remembered the tulips. I remembered that he is the only person on earth who remembers Mom's voice. He is the only person who knows what Dad smelled like after a day in the woodshop. Okay, I said. Come over. He came to my condo. He looked 10 years older. He's lost weight. We sat at my kitchen table and looked through the albums. We didn't talk about the house. We didn't talk about the money. We talked about the time we went camping and the tent blew away. We talked about Mom's terrible meatloaf. For an hour, we were just brothers again. When he left, he stood at the door. I'm sorry, Dave, he said. He didn't look at me. He looked at his shoes. I really am. I know, I said. I'm going to pay you back, he said. The rest of it. The emotional part. I don't know how, but I will. Just be Mark, I said. Just be the guy who doesn't lie. That's all the payback I need. He nodded and walked out. I watched him go. I don't know if I can ever trust him with money again. I don't know if we will ever be close like we were. The scar is deep. But the wound is closed. I kept the house. It's increasing in value. The equity is building. Maybe one day, years from now, if he stays on the straight and narrow, I'll leave it to his kids. They are innocent in this. They deserve to know the house where their father broke his arm. But for now, I am the keeper of the keys. And I changed the locks again, just in case. One thing I learned from all this: sentimental value is real, but market value is actionable. Never confuse the two. And always get a duplicate key. Thanks for listening. Part 2, The Aftershocks. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. I thought I had wrapped up the story with a neat little bow, the redemption arc, the quiet acceptance, the moral lesson. I was naive. 2 days after I posted that update, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. A physical letter, certified, return receipt requested. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. Estate of Eleanor and Joseph Miller / civil suit for undisclosed assets. My hands shook as I tore it open. It was a demand letter. It wasn't from Mark. It was from Lisa, Mark's ex-wife. The letter claimed that during their divorce proceedings, Mark had failed to disclose the substantial income he had generated from the rental of the property. It claimed that since they were married at the time, that rental income was marital property. That part one understood. Lisa was entitled to her share of what Mark made. But the letter went further. It claimed that I had colluded with Mark to hide these assets. It claimed that my buyout of Mark's share, the $260,000, was an artificial deflation of the asset designed to cheat her out of a larger settlement. It claimed that by deducting the stolen rent from the purchase price, I had effectively helped Mark launder the marital funds back into the equity of the home, which was now solely in my name. No. But it's going to cost you about 10 grand to fight it in court. Or we can settle. I felt the rage building again. Not at Lisa. She was a scorned woman trying to survive with 2 kids. I was angry at Mark. Even when he was trying to be better, his past lies were still detonating landmines in my life. I called Mark. Did you know about this? I asked, skipping the hello. Know about what? Lisa is suing me. She says I helped you hide the rental money. Mark was silent. Then he let out a long, ragged sigh. I'm sorry, Dave. Her lawyer asked me where the money went. I told him the truth. I told him you deducted it from the sale. I didn't think. You never think. I shouted. That's the problem. You just do things and leave the blast radius for everyone else. I'll talk to her, Mark said. I'll tell her to drop it. You have no leverage, Mark. You're the broke ex-husband living in a studio apartment. Why would she listen to you? Because I know something about her too, Mark said darkly. Whoa, I said. Stop. I don't want to know. I don't want to be involved in your blackmail or your mudslinging. I just want this over. I can fix this, Mark said. Don't, I said. Do not do anything. I will handle it through the lawyers. I hung up. I didn't trust him to fix a sandwich, let alone a lawsuit. I spent the next 3 weeks in a haze of legal bills and depositions. I had to turn over my bank records again. I had to turn over the spreadsheet. I had to sit in a conference room while Lisa's lawyer, a guy with a spray tan and a suit that cost more than my car, grilled me about my relationship with my brother. Did you know he was renting the house? No. But you visited the house? Rarely. And you're telling me you didn't notice a family of 3 living there? He hid them. He hid a family? How? He moved them out when I came to visit. The lawyer smirked. That sounds very elaborate, Mr. Miller. Almost unbelievable. It was humiliating. I was being painted as a co-conspirator in my own robbery. In the end, we settled. I paid Lisa $10,000. It was cheaper than going to trial. My lawyer advised me to cut the check and be done with it. So now, the deficit was $52,000. I walked out of that law office feeling hollow. I sat in my car and looked at my phone. I wanted to call Mark and scream at him. I wanted to tell him that he cost me another 10 grand. But I didn't. Because I realized something. Mark didn't have $10,000. Yelling at him wouldn't print money. It would just make me angry and him ashamed, and we would be back in the cycle. I started the car and drove to the house. It was raining. The house looked gray and tired. The new tenant's car was in the driveway. A bicycle was leaning against the porch railing. I didn't go in. I just sat there. This house. This pile of bricks and wood. It was supposed to be a blessing. It was supposed to be a legacy. Instead, it had become a curse. It had revealed the cracks in my family that I had spent a lifetime ignoring. I thought about selling it. Just putting a sign in the yard, taking the cash, and walking away. I could wipe my hands clean. But then I saw the front door open. The new tenant, a guy named Mike, walked out. He was holding an umbrella. He walked to the edge of the driveway and waited. A yellow school bus pulled up. The doors opened and a little girl hopped out. She was wearing a pink backpack. She ran to Mike, and he held the umbrella over her. They walked back up the driveway, talking. I saw him point to the tulips. She laughed. They went inside and the door closed. I sat there for a long time. Mark had ruined the memory of the house for me. He had tainted it with greed and lies. But he hadn't ruined the house itself. The roof still held off the rain. The furnace still kept the cold out. The walls still held a family. It wasn't my parents' house anymore. And it wasn't Mark's cash cow. It was Mike's home. I put the car in gear and drove away. When I got home, I opened the spreadsheet one last time. I added a row at the bottom. Legal settlement, minus $10,000. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I clicked File, Delete. I watched the file vanish. Then I went to the recycle bin and clicked Empty. The money is gone. It's not coming back. Keeping score was only keeping the wound open. I called Mark that night. It's done, I said. I settled with Lisa. Dave, Don't, I interrupted. I don't want to talk about the money. I'm done talking about the money. Okay, he said softly. I'm coming down next weekend, I said. I'm going to clean out the attic. There's still some of Dad's old tools up there. Do you want them? There was a pause. I could hear him choking back emotion. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I'd love them. Good. Be there at 10. And Mark. Yeah. Bring coffee. You're buying. He laughed. It was a weak, watery laugh, but it was real. Deal. We aren't fixed. We might never be fixed. But we are brothers. And in the end, that has to be worth more than $42,000. Or 52. The house is just a house. The money is just paper. But the history? The shared blood? That's the only asset that actually matters. And I'm not willing to sell that off just yet. So Reddit, that's it. That's the whole ugly, expensive saga. If you take anything away from this, let it be this: trust your family, but verify your assets. And if you ever find yourself staring at a spreadsheet that measures how much your brother loves you, close the laptop. Some things you just can't quantify. I stared at the piece of paper in my hand until the words started to blur. It was on heavy, cream-colored cardstock, the kind that screamed official business. The letterhead of Oak Creek Academy was embossed in gold at the top. It looked expensive. It looked serious. But the words typed in the center were ridiculous. Notice of disciplinary review regarding the enrollment status of Leo Miller due to consistent lack of parental engagement and support. I read it 3 times. The first time, I was confused. The second time, I laughed because I thought it was a mistake. The third time, I felt a cold knot of anger tighten in my stomach. They were accusing me of being absent. Me. I looked across the kitchen island at my son, Leo. He was 10 years old, eating a bowl of cereal and reading a comic book about a space raccoon. His hair was messy because he had refused to brush it, a battle I had lost 10 minutes ago. His lunchbox was packed with exactly what he asked for: turkey on wheat, no mayo, 2 tangerines, and a bag of pretzels. I had signed his reading log last night. I had driven him to school every single morning since kindergarten. I was the one who picked him up. I was the one who helped him build the solar system model that was currently sitting on the counter, waiting to be carefully transported to the science fair. My wife, Elena, was a trauma surgeon. Her schedule was erratic and demanding. She worked 80-hour weeks, leaving the house before the sun came up and often returning after Leo was asleep. She was a loving mother, but the logistics of Leo's life fell 100% on me. I was a freelance software consultant. I worked from home. My entire career was built around being available for my son. And now, Oak Creek Academy, a charter school that prided itself on community partnership, was telling me I was failing. I grabbed my keys and the solar system model. "Let's go, buddy," I said. "We have a stop to make before class." The drive to school was quiet. My mind was racing. Oak Creek was competitive. We had won a lottery spot 5 years ago, and we treated it like a golden ticket. The waiting list was miles long. If you messed up, if your grades dropped, if you had behavioral issues, you were out. But lack of parental engagement? That was a new one. I pulled into the drop-off line, the same place I had been every morning for 5 years. I watched Leo hop out, his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. I waited until he was safely through the double doors before I parked the car and walked into the administration building. The receptionist, a woman named Janice who I had chatted with 1,000 times, didn't look up when I walked in. That was the first red flag. Usually, she asked about Elena or commented on the weather. Today, she was aggressively typing on her keyboard. "Good morning, Janice," I said, keeping my voice level. "I need to speak with Principal Vance." "She's in a meeting," Janice said, still not looking at me. "I'll wait." "She's booked all day, Mr. Miller." "Then I'll wait all day." I sat down in one of the uncomfortable wooden chairs in the waiting area. "I have a laptop. I have Wi-Fi. I'm not leaving until I get an explanation for this." I held up the letter. Janice finally looked at me. There was pity in her eyes, mixed with something else. Fear. She picked up the phone and whispered something. 2 minutes later, the heavy oak door to the principal's office opened. Principal Vance was a tall woman who wore sharp blazers and smiled without showing her teeth. She had always been cordial, if a bit distant. Today, she looked like she was preparing for a siege. "Mr. Miller," she said. "I didn't expect you." "Clearly," I said, standing up. "Since you sent me a letter threatening to kick my son out of school for parental negligence." "Come in." I followed her into the office. Sitting in the corner was Mrs. Gable, Leo's 5th grade homeroom teacher. Mrs. Gable was young, new to the district, and had seemed overwhelmed since September. We had exchanged maybe 10 emails all year, mostly about lunch accounts or permission slips. She refused to make eye contact with me. I sat down. "Explain." Vance folded her hands on her desk. "Mr. Miller, Oak Creek Academy has high standards. Not just for our students, but for our families. We operate on a partnership model. When that partnership is one-sided, the student suffers." "One-sided," I repeated. "I drop him off. I pick him up. I sign every form. I attend every open house. I donate to the fund drives." Vance sighed, a long theatrical exhale that suggested I was being difficult. She opened a thick file folder on her desk. "We have records, Mr. Miller. Extensive records." She slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a spreadsheet. "This is a log of parental attendance for mandatory school events this year," she said. "September open house, absent. October parent-teacher conference, absent. November fall festival volunteer shift, no show. December holiday pageant, absent. January state of the school meeting, absent." She looked up at me. "You have missed every single major event this year. Mrs. Gable has noted that she has sent you 15 separate emails regarding Leo's declining participation in class, and you have replied to none of them. We sent 3 requests for a meeting regarding his math grades. No response. We sent a permission slip for the Springfield trip 3 times. It was never returned, and Leo had to stay in the library while his classmates went to the museum." My mouth fell open. I looked at Mrs. Gable. She was studying her cuticles. "That is a lie," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was shaking. "I was at the open house. I met you, Mrs. Gable. We talked about Leo's interest in robotics. I was at the fall festival. I ran the popcorn machine for 3 hours. I have pictures of me at the holiday pageant." "Mr. Miller," Vance said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Our sign-in sheets do not lie. We have electronic logs for the volunteer shifts. Your name is not on them. As for the emails..." She pulled out another stack of papers. "These are printouts of the emails Mrs. Gable sent. You can see the timestamps." I looked at the papers. They were screenshots of an email inbox. To mark.miller@emailprovider.com. Subject: Urgent Leo's math grade. Date: November 12th. "I never received this," I said. "That seems unlikely," Vance said. "It is the address we have on file." "And the field trip?" I demanded. "I signed that slip. I put it in his folder myself." Mrs. Gable finally spoke. Her voice was thin and reedy. "Leo said you lost it. He said he asked you for it every day and you told him you were too busy working." I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. "My son did not say that. My son cried for 2 hours because he thought the trip was cancelled. He told me the teacher said the bus was full." "Mr. Miller, please sit down," Vance said sharply. Aggression will not help your case. My case. The board is reviewing Leo's placement next week, Vance said. We have a long wait list of families who are desperate to be here. Families who show up. Families who care. This letter is your formal notice. Unless you can provide concrete proof that our records are wrong, which is impossible, given that these are official school documents, Leo will be transferred to his zone public school at the end of the semester. She closed the folder. The sound was final. We want what is best for Leo, Vance said. Clearly, his home environment is not prioritizing his education. Perhaps a less rigorous school would be a better fit for your lifestyle. I looked at Vance. I looked at Gable. I realized then that arguing was useless. They weren't looking for explanations. They were looking for a scapegoat. They had built a wall of paper, and they were going to crush my son with it. Can I have copies of those? I asked. Copies of what? The logs. The email screenshots. The attendance sheets. All of it. Vance hesitated. These are internal documents. They are my son's educational records, I said. Under FERPA, I have a right to inspect and review them. I want copies. Now. Vance looked annoyed, but she knew the law. She nodded to the copy machine in the corner. Mrs. Gable, please make Mr. Miller a packet. I waited. I watched Mrs. Gable walk to the copier. I watched her hands shake as she fed the papers through. She handed me a thick stack of warm paper. Thank you, I said. I'll see you at the board meeting. I walked out of the office. I walked past Janice. I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and threw the packet on the passenger seat. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. They thought I was just some disengaged dad. They thought I was a flake. They thought they could bully me because they had official records. They didn't know what I did for a living. I'm not just a software consultant. I specialize in forensic data analysis. I audit corporate systems for compliance and fraud. I track digital footprints for companies that are being sued. My entire life is built on the premise that people lie, but data doesn't. And Principal Vance had just handed me a stack of data. I went home. I didn't work on my client projects. I went into my office, closed the blinds, and turned on my 3-monitor setup. I placed the packet next to my keyboard and cracked my knuckles. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. Let's play. The first thing I did was scan every single page into my system. I needed digital searchable text. I started with the emails. Mrs. Gable claimed she sent 15 emails that I ignored. The printouts showed the sent folder view of an Outlook client. I pulled up my own email server logs. I don't use a standard Gmail or Yahoo account. I own my domain. I run my own mail server. I have logs of every single packet of data that hits my IP address. I have spam filters that archive rejected messages. I have a trash retention policy of 5 years. I filtered my server logs for the dates on the printouts. November 12th. November 24th. December 5th. Nothing. No connection attempts from the school's domain. No bounced messages. No spam quarantine. I looked closer at the printout Mrs. Gable had provided. It was a screenshot, but something was off. The font on the date stamp was slightly pixelated compared to the body text. I opened the image in Photoshop. I zoomed in on the pixels. It was a bad edit. A really, really bad edit. Someone had taken a screenshot of an email sent to someone else, erased the recipient, typed my name over it, and changed the date. They hadn't even matched the anti-aliasing of the font. It was a sloppy copy-paste job. Why would a teacher forge emails? I moved on to the attendance logs. September open house, absent. I opened my Google Photos account. I searched for September. I scrolled through the timeline. There it was. A selfie of me and Leo in front of his classroom door, timestamped September 14th, 6:45 p.m. The GPS metadata placed me exactly at the coordinates of Oak Creek Academy. I opened my text messages. September 14th, 7:02 p.m. A text to Elena. His teacher seems nice but young. Room smells like chalk and desperation. Wish you were here. I had proof I was there. But Vance had a sign-in sheet that said I wasn't. I looked at the copy of the sign-in sheet they gave me. It was a handwritten grid. Parents' names, signatures, time in, time out. My name was typed on the list, but the signature box was empty. I looked at the names above and below mine. Sarah Jenkins. Robert Chun. I knew Robert. He was a dad I talked to at soccer practice. I pulled out my phone and texted him. Hey Rob, weird question. Were you at the open house in September? 3 dots appeared instantly. Yeah man, saw you there. Why? School is claiming I wasn't. They have a sign-in sheet with your signature, but not mine. Do you remember signing in? I think so. There was a clipboard by the door. But it was crowded. Maybe you missed it? Maybe. But I didn't miss the fall festival. I worked the popcorn machine. You can't run a popcorn machine without checking in with a volunteer coordinator to get the keys and the cash box. I dug through my banking records. I had bought a soda and a hot dog at the festival. Transaction ID, 884-9201. Vendor, Oak Creek PTA. Time, November 10th, 1:15 p.m. I was building a timeline. A dossier of truth to counter their dossier of lies. But proving I was there wasn't enough. I needed to know why they were doing this. Why target me? Why target Leo? Leo was a B student. He wasn't failing. He wasn't a troublemaker. He was just a normal kid. I went back to the letter. Consistent lack of parental engagement. I started searching the school's public records. Board meeting minutes. Budget reports. Grant applications. Oak Creek Academy was a charter school. They relied on state funding, but they also chased private grants. I found a press release from 6 months ago. Oak Creek Academy finalist for the Community Pillar Grant, $500,000 for technology upgrades. I read the grant requirements. The Community Pillar Grant was awarded to schools that demonstrated exceptional family integration. One of the key metrics was 100% parental attendance at mandatory quarterly events. 100%. If even one parent missed a meeting, their statistics dropped. They wouldn't get the money. I looked at the dates of the events I supposedly missed. They aligned perfectly with the reporting periods for the grant. But wait. If they needed 100% attendance, why would they fabricate records saying I was absent? That would hurt their chances. Unless. I read the fine print of the grant application again. Exceptions. Students with documented home life instability or non-custodial parental issues may be excluded from the aggregate data set if the school can demonstrate a pattern of attempted engagement. There it was. If a parent simply didn't show up, it ruined the score. But if the school could prove the parent was a lost cause, a negligent, absent father who ignored all outreach, then that students' data didn't count against them. They could scrub Leo from the statistics. They needed a failure. They needed a bad guy. And because Elena was working and I was the quiet guy who didn't socialize much with the clique Y PTA moms, they picked me. They figured I wouldn't fight back. They figured I would just pull Leo out and move on. They were trying to ruin my reputation and my son's education for $500,000 of iPads and smartboards. I felt a rage so pure it was almost calming. I had the what. I had the why. Now I needed the kill shot. I needed to prove that Mrs. Gable didn't just forge the emails on her own. I needed to link it to Vance. I looked at the metadata of the Word document they had given me. Mrs. Gable had printed the emails, but she had pasted them into a Word doc first. I couldn't access the metadata from the paper copy, obviously. But I remembered something. Oak Creek used a parent portal called School Connect. It was a web app where teachers uploaded grades and announcements. Sometimes, they uploaded files for parents to download. I logged into School Connect. I went to Leo's profile. There was a section called Administrative Files. Usually, this was empty. But today, there was a new file. Miller_review_packet_draft.pdf. They had uploaded it to the wrong folder. They probably meant to put it in a private internal folder, but someone clicked the wrong permission box. I downloaded it immediately. I opened the PDF properties. Created, yesterday, 4 p.m. Author, K. Vance. Last modified by, sgable. I used a PDF analysis tool to look at the revision history. The document had been edited 6 times in 1 hour. I extracted the text layer. I found comments that had been deleted, but were still in the hex code of the file structure. Comment from K. Vance: make the dates earlier. Needs to look like a pattern from September. Comment from SGable: I don't have emails from back then. Comment from K. Vance: just mock them up. He won't check. He's never online. Got you. I saved everything. I backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. I put a copy on a USB drive. I printed a fresh copy. The board meeting was in 4 days. For the next 4 days, I played the part. I sent a polite, slightly desperate email to Mrs. Gable asking if there was any way to make up the missed credits. I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to think I was begging. Mrs. Gable replied instantly, ironic, considering her previous communication issues. Mr. Miller, the administration feels that it is too late for corrections. We will discuss the transition plan at the meeting. Transition plan. They were already filling Leo's seat. Tuesday night arrived. The school auditorium was packed. Usually, board meetings were boring affairs about budget line items and cafeteria vendors. But tonight, the rumor mill was churning. People knew about the enrollment review. Elena had taken the night off. She was sitting next to me, wearing her scrubs, looking like she wanted to intubate someone with a rusty spoon. Let me handle the talking, I told her. You just glare. I can do that, she said. The meeting started. The board members sat at a long table on the stage. Principal Vance was there, looking smug. Mrs. Gable looked nauseous. They went through the agenda. Finally, item number 4, enrollment review, student L. Miller. Vance stood up. She walked to the podium. Thank you, board members. We have a difficult situation today. Oak Creek relies on the support of our families. We have a student, Leo Miller, whose family has consistently failed to meet the minimum engagement standards required by our charter. Despite repeated attempts by his teacher and myself to bridge this gap, the father, Mr. Miller, has been completely absent. She paused for effect. The crowd murmured. I could feel eyes on my back. We have documented evidence of missed conferences, ignored communications, and a general disregard for the child's education, Vance continued. To protect the integrity of our waitlist and our community standards, we recommend Leo Miller's enrollment be terminated effective immediately. The board president, a man named Mr. Henderson, looked at me. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to say? I stood up. I picked up my laptop case. I walked to the front of the room. I do, I said. I plugged my laptop into the podium's HDMI cable. The projector screen behind the board lit up. Principal Vance claims I am an absent father, I said into the microphone. She claims I ignored 15 emails. She claims I missed 5 events. She claims this is about standards. I clicked a button. The screen filled with a side-by-side comparison of the school's email and the forensic analysis of the pixelation. This is a forgery, I said. A bad one. The font kerning on the date is wrong. The compression artifacts show it was pasted in. Vance stood up. This is inappropriate. I'm just getting started, I said. I clicked again. My server logs appeared. This is a log of all incoming traffic to my mail server. On the dates Mrs. Gable claims she emailed me, no email was sent. Not to spam. Not to trash. It never existed. The room was dead silent. I clicked again. The Google timeline map showing me at the school during the open house. The time-stamped photo of me and Leo. The bank statement showing the popcorn purchase at the festival. I was there, I said. I was at every single event you claimed I missed. I looked at the board. They looked horrified. Vance was pale. Mrs. Gable had her head in her hands. But why? I asked. Why lie? Why frame a father who is trying his best? I clicked the final slide. The grant application. The exceptions clause highlighted in yellow. The Community Pillar Grant, I said. $500,000. Requires 100% parental attendance. Unless you can prove a parent is negligent, then you can throw out their data. A gasp went through the room. You didn't want to kick Leo out because I was a bad dad, I said, my voice rising. You wanted to kick him out because you couldn't get 100% attendance from the other parents, and you needed a sacrificial lamb to fix your numbers. You needed a negligent parent to create a loophole. I turned to look directly at Vance. And just to seal the deal, I said. I played the screen recording of the PDF metadata. The comments appeared on the giant screen, larger than life. K. Vance, make the dates earlier. Needs to look like a pattern. SGable, I don't have emails from back then. K. Vance, just mock them up. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. It was the sound of a career ending. This is fraud, I said. It is defamation. It is a violation of FERPA. And it is the most shameful thing I have ever seen an educator do. I unplugged my laptop. My son is a good kid, I said to the silent room. He deserves better than this. We resign his spot, effective immediately. And you will be hearing from my lawyer regarding the falsification of his educational records. I walked off the stage. Elena stood up and took my hand. We walked down the center aisle. As we reached the doors, the applause started. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar. The other parents were standing up. They were furious. They realized that if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. We didn't look back. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The video of the meeting, recorded by about 50 different parents, went viral locally. The State Board of Education launched an investigation within 24 hours. Principal Vance was placed on administrative leave the next morning. She resigned 3 days later. It turned out I wasn't the only one. They had done this to 3 other families in previous years to secure different funding streams. Mrs. Gable was fired. I actually felt a tiny bit sorry for her. She was young and pressured by her boss, but she had gone along with it. She had forged the documents. She had looked me in the eye and lied. The school lost the grant. Obviously. The entire school board was recalled. The charter is currently under review for revocation. As for us, we moved Leo to a regular public school. The building is older. The technology isn't as shiny. But the principal stands outside every morning and high-fives the kids. The teachers send actual emails. Leo is happy. He has friends. He joined the robotics club. And me? I joined the PTA at the new school. At the first meeting, the treasurer asked for volunteers to manage the membership database. I can do it, I said. I'm pretty good with records. The treasurer smiled. Great. We just need someone who shows up. I smiled back. Don't worry. I have the receipts. The best part? About a month after the explosion, I got a letter from the former board president of Oak Creek. It was an official apology, drafted by their legal team, hoping to stave off a massive lawsuit, which is still pending, by the way. It read, "We deeply regret the clerical errors that led to the misunderstanding regarding your engagement." I framed it. It hangs in my office, right next to the solar system model Leo and I built. Every time I look at it, I remember the look on Vance's face when the metadata hit the screen. Don't mess with the quiet dads. We're watching. And we save everything. I'm writing this because the dust is finally settled, the lawyers have stopped billing me, and I can finally breathe without feeling a phantom knife in my back. If you're looking for a story about a screaming match in a parking lot or a dramatic fistfight, this isn't it. This is a story about numbers, contracts, and the absolute destruction of a man who thought I was too weak to fight back. I realized my life was over while standing at the counter of a CVS in a strip mall, wearing sweatpants that were too loose and a back brace that was too tight. I had just undergone a severe L4-L5 spinal fusion. I was 3 weeks post-op. The pain was a dull, throbbing roar that lived at the base of my spine, managed only by the prescription awaiting me behind the counter. Card declined, the pharmacist said. She didn't look up. She just held the card out, waiting for me to take it back. That's not possible, I said. My voice sounded thin, raspy. I hadn't spoken much in days. It's a business debit card. There's over 80,000 in the operating account. It says do not honor, she repeated, finally making eye contact. Her eyes were tired. She didn't care about my operating account. She cared that the line behind me was growing. I pulled out my personal card. Declined. I pulled out my emergency credit card. Declined. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank app, which I hadn't checked in 2 days because the painkillers made looking at screens nauseating. I tapped it. The Face ID failed twice because I looked like death, so I typed in the passcode with shaking fingers. Available balance, minus $4,200.50. That was my personal checking. I switched tabs to the business account, the account I had built for 12 years. The account that was supposed to hold the payroll for my 6 employees, the vendor deposits for our current projects, and the safety net for my recovery. Available balance, $0. Status, frozen/overdrawn. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply walked away from the counter, leaving the painkillers there, and walked out to my car. I sat in the driver's seat of my truck, the leather cold against my legs, and stared at the dashboard. I called Mark. It went straight to voicemail. Mark wasn't just my business partner. He was the man standing next to me when I got married. He was the godfather to my daughter. We had built Apex Custom Cabinetry, from a garage operation into a premier architectural millwork firm in the tri-state area. We did high-end commercial fit-outs, law firms, tech lobbies, penthouses. We dealt in walnut, brass, and 6-figure contracts. I was the talent. I designed the systems, managed the shop floor, and handled the complex engineering of the installs. Mark was the face. He handled the clients, the books, and the banks. It was a division of labor that had worked flawlessly for over a decade. I made the sawdust, he made the deposits. 6 months ago, I found out my spine was collapsing. Years of lifting heavy oak slabs and contorting into install spaces had caught up with me. The surgery wasn't optional. The recovery would be 3 months minimum. "Don't worry about it, brother," Mark had told me, clapping a hand on my shoulder in our showroom. "You built this ship. I'll steer it while you're in dry dock. Focus on walking again. I've got the books. I've got the clients. Just heal." I trusted him. I signed over temporary power of attorney for specific banking functions so he wouldn't need my physical signature for checks over $10,000, a safeguard we had instituted years ago. I handed him the keys to the kingdom, and I went under the knife. Now, sitting in the CVS parking lot, I realized that while I was learning to walk again, Mark had been learning to run. I drove home. The pain in my back was blinding, but the adrenaline spikes were keeping me lucid. I bypassed my wife, Sarah, who was in the kitchen. I couldn't tell her yet. If I told her, it became real. If I told her, the panic would set in, and I needed to be cold. I needed to be a machine. I went to my home office and booted up my desktop. I logged into our accounting software, QuickBooks Online. Access denied. User privileges revoked. My stomach dropped. I tried the admin login. Changed. I tried the email server admin panel. Password incorrect. He hadn't just stolen the money, he had locked me out of the building, digitally speaking. He knew I was home today. He knew I was recovering. He also knew I was non-confrontational by nature. I was the guy who measured twice and cut once. I avoided conflict. He counted on that. I called the bank. The business relationship manager, a woman named Linda who sent us Christmas cards every year, answered on the second ring. "Linda, it's David," I said. "I'm at the pharmacy and my card declined. I'm locked out of online banking. What is going on?" There was a long silence on the other end. The kind of silence that screams legal liability. "David," she said, her voice stiff. "I can't discuss the account details over the phone right now due to the pending investigation regarding the wire transfers." "What wire transfers?" "Linda, I didn't authorize any transfers." "David, please." Mark was in here with the updated operating agreement and the POA. He liquidated the savings and the operating line of credit 3 days ago. He said you were buying out a competitor in Florida. The wire went to an escrow account in Miami. "Florida? We don't work in Florida." "Linda, freeze it. Freeze everything right now." "I can't," she said, and I could hear the pity in her voice. "The accounts are already empty. The overdraft is from the automatic payroll draw that hit this morning. It bounced, David. Your employees didn't get paid." I hung up. My employees. 6 guys. Guys with mortgages. Guys with kids. Guys who had visited me in the hospital. I sat there for an hour, staring at a blank monitor. I needed to understand the scale of this. Mark didn't just take the cash. If he drained the line of credit, we were in debt. Deep debt. The operating line was $250,000. The savings usually held about $100,000 for materials deposits. He had stolen over $250,000 in 3 days. But why? Mark wasn't a gambler. He didn't do drugs. He drove a nice car, sure, but he wasn't flashy. We took modest salaries and reinvested in the company. Where did the money go? I needed help. I couldn't afford a lawyer. Literally, I couldn't buy a bottle of aspirin, let alone a retainer, but I had resources. I called my brother-in-law, Sam. Sam isn't a lawyer, and he isn't a cop. Sam is a forensic accountant for a firm that handles high-asset divorces. He finds money that husbands try to hide from their wives. Sam, I said when he picked up, I need you to come over. Bring your laptop. And maybe a bottle of whiskey. It's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, Dave. Mark emptied the accounts. All of them. Sam was at my door in 20 minutes. We spent the next 12 hours reconstructing the crime scene without access to the main books. We used my personal email archives, cached browser history, and vendor invoices that I had forwarded to my personal account over the years. Sam was a wizard. He knew how to cross-reference public lien searches with UCC filings. By 3 a.m., we had a picture. And it was ugly. Mark hadn't just stolen the money for a vacation. He was covering a hole. A massive, gaping hole caused by a side business I didn't know existed. Look at this, Sam said, pointing to a series of shell company filings in Nevada. CryptoCore LLC. Registered agent is Mark's wife's maiden name. Date of incorporation, 8 months ago. He was mining crypto? I asked, confused. No, Sam said, rubbing his eyes. He was trading it. And he was leveraging on margin. He wasn't gambling at a casino, Dave. He was gambling on futures. And he lost. He lost big. The market tanked 4 months ago. He's been floating the margin calls with vendor deposits. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. But when the big payroll hit and the tax bill came due, he panicked. He liquidated the company to cover his personal exposure so he wouldn't go to jail for fraud on the investment side. He thinks he can just leave? I asked. He thinks I won't sue him? He knows you can't sue him, Sam said grimly. Dave, look at the wire destination. The escrow in Miami? It's a literal shell. The money is likely offshore by now. If you sue him, you'll spend $50,000 to get a judgment against a man who has zero assets on paper. He's judgment-proof. He's going to declare personal bankruptcy, the business will dissolve, and you'll be left holding the debt on the line of credit because... Sam paused. He clicked a few keys and pulled up a PDF of our original bank loan documents. Because, Sam whispered, you signed the personal guarantee on the line of credit. Mark didn't. I remembered that day. 5 years ago. Mark's credit score had taken a hit because of a dispute with a contractor on his house. The bank said they needed a 750+ score for the personal guarantee. I had an 810. I signed it. I guaranteed the debt personally. If Apex went under, the bank wouldn't go after Mark. They would come for my house. My truck. My retirement. I was going to lose everything. I stood up, intending to pace, but my back seized, sending a bolt of lightning down my left leg. I collapsed back into the chair, gasping. Dave. Sam asked, reaching out. I'm fine, I gritted out. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I was cornered. A cornered animal doesn't run. A cornered animal attacks. But I couldn't attack with strength. I was weak. I had no money. I had no access. I need to talk to him, I said. He won't answer, Sam said. I know. I need to make him answer. I didn't sleep that night. I formulated a plan. It was risky, it was borderline manipulative, and it required me to act like a broken, defeated man. Which wasn't hard, because I was. The next morning, I sent Mark an email. I knew he was reading them, even if he wasn't replying. Subject, I know. Let's make a deal. Mark, I know about CryptoCore. I know about the margin calls. I know the money is gone. I'm not calling the police. I'm not calling a lawyer. I don't have the money for either. My back is ruined. The doctor says I might not be able to work the shop floor ever again. I'm done. You win. I want to walk away. I want my name off the company. You take the assets, you take the liabilities, you take the clients. I just want a clean break so I don't lose my house to the bank. Meet me. One last time. We sign a separation agreement. I resign. You become sole owner. If you don't meet me, I go to your wife. I show her the Nevada filings. I show her where the kids' college fund really went. I hit send. The threat about his wife was the hook. Mark's wife, Elena, was a shark. She came from money, old money. She cared about reputation more than breathing. If she knew Mark had blown their lifestyle on a crypto gamble, she would eviscerate him. Mark was terrified of her. He replied in 10 minutes. Starbucks on 4th. 10 a.m. Come alone. I showered. It was painful. I dressed in my sick clothes, sweatpants and a hoodie. I wanted to look weak. I wanted to look like I had given up. I drove to the Starbucks. Mark was there, sitting in the corner, wearing a suit. He looked tired, but he also looked arrogant. He had assessed the situation and decided he had the upper hand. He knew I was risk-averse. He knew I prioritized stability over vengeance. I sat down. I moved slowly, exaggerating the stiffness in my back. I grimaced as I sat. You look like hell, Dave, he said. No apology. No how are you? I feel like hell, I said. Where's the money, Mark? Gone, he said. He took a sip of his coffee. Bad investments. Market volatility. I tried to fix it, Dave. I tried to double down to earn it back before you noticed. It didn't work. You stole from us. I borrowed. And I lost. It is what it is. He leaned back. So what's this deal? You want out? I can't carry the debt, I said, my voice trembling. I wasn't acting about the fear. The line of credit is maxed. The vendors are calling. If this goes to court, the bank takes my house. I have Sarah. I have the baby. I can't lose the house, Mark. So what are you proposing? I sign over my 50% equity to you. For $1. I resign as an officer. In exchange, you refinance the line of credit into your name, or Elena's name, and remove me as the guarantor. You take the company. We have 3 big contracts pending, Mark. The Johnson job alone is worth $400,000. If you finish that job, you can pay off the debt and keep the company going. I can't do the work anymore. My back is done. I saw the greed flicker in his eyes. He did the math. The Johnson job was lucrative. If he could finish it, he could clear the debt and own 100% of a company that generated $1 million a year in profit. He thought I was handing him a golden goose because I was too scared to pluck it. I can't refinance it today, he said. My credit is shot. Then you get Elena to co-sign. Or you get a hard money loan. I don't care. But I want a contract stating that you assume full liability for all company debts as of today, and you indemnify me against any claims. You sign that, I give you the company. He thought about it. I need the client list. I need the IP for the mounting systems. It's all yours. Included in the sale. Deal, he said. I'll have my lawyer draw it up. No, I said. I brought a contract. Standard separation agreement. I pulled it from LegalZoom. We sign it now, get it notarized at the UPS store next door, and I walk away. I pulled the document from my bag. It wasn't from LegalZoom. My brother-in-law Sam had a friend, a corporate litigator named Jessica, who owed him a favor. She had drafted it at 4 a.m. It looked standard. It had all the clauses about transferring equity and resigning. But it had 2 very specific clauses buried in the definition section. Clause 14b, the assumption of liability. Mark explicitly assumed all historical, current, and future liabilities of the entity, personally guaranteeing them, effectively superseding my previous guarantee between us as partners. This wouldn't stop the bank from suing me, but it gave me a slam-dunk countersuit capability against him immediately. Clause 19C, the Keyman IP reversion. This was the poison pill. It stated that while the company retained the intellectual property, the license to use the proprietary Apex mounting system, which all our current jobs required, was tied to the founding designer me, and was revocable for cause, defined extensively, including breach of fiduciary duty or insolvency. Mark didn't read Clause 19C closely. He was focused on the equity transfer. He saw Dave gives Mark 100% ownership, and his eyes glazed over with victory. We walked to the UPS store. We signed. The notary stamped it. "Good luck, Dave," Mark said, tucking the folder under his arm. "Hope your back gets better." "Goodbye, Mark," I said. I walked to my truck. I waited until he drove away. Then I called Sam. "Did he sign?" Sam asked. "He signed." "Execute Phase 2, Sam said. Phase 2 wasn't legal. Phase 2 was relational. I drove to the office of the Johnson Group. They were our biggest client. The $400,000 contract Mark was banking on. The CEO, Mr. Johnson, was an old-school guy. He liked me. He liked that I showed up with sawdust on my boots. He tolerated Mark because Mark was my partner. I walked into his office, leaning heavily on my cane. "Dave." Johnson boomed. "Good to see you up and about. We ready to start the lobby install next week?" "Mr. Johnson," I said, sitting down painfully. "I have to be honest with you. I'm not doing the install. I'm no longer with Apex." Johnson stopped smiling. "What? Since when?" "Since this morning. Mark. Mark has taken full control of the company." I paused, letting the implication hang. I can't go into details legally, but there were financial irregularities. I couldn't have my name attached to it anymore. I resigned to protect my family. Johnson narrowed his eyes. "Irregularities? My deposit. The $50,000. Is it safe?" I looked at him. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just looked at him with sad, tired eyes. "Mark has assured me he has the funds to complete your project," I said. "But I wanted to tell you personally that I won't be overseeing the quality control." Johnson picked up his phone. "Get me accounting," he barked into the receiver. Then he looked at me. "If you aren't doing the QC, I don't want the job. My contract says, Project Lead, David Miller. If you aren't the lead, the contract is void." "Technically," I said, "Mark might try to enforce it." "Let him try," Johnson growled. "I'm pulling the contract. I'm demanding my deposit back." "You should do that today," I suggested softly. I did this 3 more times. I visited our top 3 clients. I didn't slander Mark. I didn't lie. I simply told them I had left due to internal disagreements regarding financial management, and that I could no longer guarantee the quality of the work. By 5 p.m., Mark's phone would be melting. 3 clients, representing 80% of the company's projected revenue, were canceling contracts and demanding refunds of deposits that Mark didn't have. But the final nail wasn't the clients. It was the employees. I called a meeting at a diner near the shop. All 6 of my guys showed up. They looked worried. They knew checks had bounced. "Guys," I said, "I'm sorry. The money is gone. Mark spent it." There was an uproar. Angry shouting. "Listen." I raised my hand. "I'm out. I signed the company over to him today. So we're screwed." Mike, my foreman, asked. "I have rent due, Dave." "I know," I said. I pulled a checkbook out of my pocket. My personal checkbook. The one with the negative balance. "I can't pay you today," I said. "But I am starting a new company. Miller Millwork. It starts today. I have no shop. I have no tools. They are locked in Apex. But I have me. And I have you guys if you want." "How are you gonna pay us?" Mike asked. "I just sold my boat," I lied. I didn't have a boat to sell, but I had just liquidated my 401k. The penalty was steep, but it gave me enough cash to cover 2 weeks of payroll. "I can cover this week's missed check and next week's. By then we'll have work." "What work?" The Johnson job, I smiled. My phone rang. It was Johnson. Dave, Johnson said. I fired Apex. Mark gave me some runaround about cash flow. I told him to go to hell. Can you do the job? I don't have a shop, Mr. Johnson. I don't care. Build it in my parking lot if you have to. I want your quality. I'll write a new deposit check to your new entity tomorrow. Can you start Monday? Yes, sir, I said. I looked at the guys. We have the Johnson job. The table erupted. The next 2 weeks were a blur of chaos. Mark was imploding. Without the Johnson contract, he had no revenue coming in to service the debt. The other clients pulled out when they heard Johnson had bailed. Mark was left with a warehouse full of expensive tools, a mountain of debt, and zero income. He tried to sue me. He sent a cease and desist letter claiming I had solicited clients in violation of a non-compete. I sent a letter back, attached to a copy of our separation agreement. Per Clause 19C, your failure to maintain fiduciary standards, evidenced by the bounced payroll checks and unauthorized withdrawals, constituted cause. Therefore, the license for the Apex mounting system is revoked. You are currently in possession of stolen IP. Cease usage immediately or face federal litigation. He couldn't build the remaining small jobs without my system. He was dead in the water. Then came the bank. Since the revenue stopped, Mark defaulted on the line of credit within 30 days. The bank called me, of course. Mr. Miller, the loan is in default. We are initiating collections. Talk to Mark, I said. I sent you the notarized assumption of liability agreement. That agreement is between you and Mark, the bank officer said, sounding annoyed. It doesn't release you from your obligation to the bank. We can still come after you. I know, I said. But here's the thing. Mark has assets. He has a house in his wife's name. But in our state, if the debt is business-related and assumed by a spouse. I was bluffing the bank. I knew they would come for me. But I needed to buy time for the final blow. I sent the packet to Elena. I didn't want to bring the wife into it, but Mark left me no choice. He was still trying to fight, spreading rumors that I had embezzled the money. I took a manila envelope. Inside were the forensic accounting report showing the transfers to CryptoCore LLC, the registration showing Elena's maiden name on the LLC, which implicated her, unknowingly, the separation agreement where Mark admitted to the debt, a letter explaining that the bank was about to foreclose on my house, and if they did, I would sue Mark and Elena personally for fraud, piercing the corporate veil of CryptoCore because of the commingling of funds. I dropped it in their mailbox at midnight. The explosion happened 2 days later. I heard it from a mutual friend. Elena opened the packet. She didn't know about the crypto. She didn't know about the debt. She thought Apex was thriving. She kicked him out. Literally. Changed the locks, threw his clothes on the lawn. Then she called her daddy's lawyers. Elena's lawyers were terrifying. They contacted the bank. To avoid the scandal of a fraud lawsuit involving their daughter's name, her family settled the Apex debt. They paid off the line of credit in full to stop the bleeding. I was off the hook. The bank sent me a loan paid in full letter. I framed it. Mark was left with nothing. No business. Apex dissolved. No wife. Divorce proceedings started immediately. No money. Elena's lawyers ensured he got nothing in the prenup enforcement because of his financial infidelity. No friends. The story came out. The tight-knit community we lived in turned on him. You don't steal from a guy in a back brace. It's a bad look. 6 months later. Miller Millwork is thriving. We moved into a new shop, ironically, the building next door to the old Apex warehouse, which is currently sitting empty with a for lease sign. I was at the hardware store last week, buying carriage bolts. I saw Mark. He was working at the counter of the rental center. He looked 10 years older. He was wearing a generic polo shirt, and he looked deflated. He saw me. He stopped typing on the register. I didn't say anything. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just put my carriage bolts on the counter. How much? I asked. $12, he mumbled, not making eye contact. I paid with my new business debit card. It worked. Receipt? He asked. No thanks, I said. I keep my own books now. I walked out. My back still hurts sometimes when it rains. I can't lift the heavy slabs like I used to. I have to use a forklift or ask the guys for help. But I sleep at night. Mark tried to take the shortcut. He thought the numbers on a screen were just a game. He forgot that business isn't about money, it's about trust. He spent the trust, and when the bill came due, he was bankrupt in the only currency that matters. I learned a lot that year. I learned that contracts are only as good as the people signing them. I learned that loyalty is expensive, but betrayal costs more. And I learned that if you're going to dig a grave for your partner, you better make sure he's actually dead before you toss the shovel in. Because if he climbs out, he might just bury you in it. Update, 1 year later. I figured I owed you guys an update since the messages kept coming. Miller Millwork is no longer a scrappy startup. We are fully established. We actually acquired the old Apex machinery at auction 3 months ago. It was a surreal moment, walking back into that warehouse. The smell of the old sawdust was still there. I bought our old CNC machine for pennies on the dollar because no one else knew how to program the specific vintage we had. Mark is gone. Not dead, just gone. He moved to Arizona to live with his sister. I heard he's trying to get into real estate sales out there. Good luck to anyone who buys a condo from him. Elena, Mark's ex-wife, actually reached out to me. This was the most awkward coffee of my life. She wanted to apologize. She said she had no idea how deep the rot went until that manila envelope showed up. She thanked me for not dragging her into a lawsuit, even though I totally threatened to. She's fine, her family money insulates her from the real world, but her ego took a hit. The most satisfying part? The IRS. Remember how I said I didn't report him? Well, I didn't have to. When Elena's forensic accountants went through the divorce discovery, they found the tax fraud. Mark hadn't paid payroll taxes for the last 2 quarters of Apex's existence. He had pocketed the withholdings. That is a felony. The IRS doesn't care if you're broke. They don't care if you're divorced. They want their money. Mark is currently on a payment plan with the federal government that will last until he is roughly 90 years old. They garnish his wages. Every paycheck he earns in Arizona, Uncle Sam takes a bite out of before he even sees it. I didn't put him in prison. I didn't beat him up. I just let him sign his name on the dotted line, and let gravity do the rest. My back is at about 90%. I played catch with my daughter last weekend for the first time in 2 years. I threw the ball, bent down to pick it up, and didn't wince. That was the real victory. The money comes and goes. The business is just wood and metal. But standing on the grass in the sun, free of pain and free of the parasite that had been draining my life, that's priceless. So to anyone out there who thinks they're trapped in a partnership with a snake, document everything. Keep your personal emails separate. And never, ever give up your leverage until the ink is dry. Stay safe out there. Edit. A few people asked about the Keyman clause and the specifics of the IP. To clarify, we designed a specific hidden bracket system for heavy floating shelves that was code compliant for commercial loads. It was our secret sauce. Without it, our installs were just generic carpentry. By tying the license to me personally, I essentially removed the engine from the car before selling him the chassis. It's a brutal clause, but my lawyer insisted on it years ago, just in case. Listen to your lawyers, folks. Even when you trust your friends. Especially when you trust your friends. End of log.